Chapter 2984. Evil Tyrant's Palm Flipped. Gu Jingyu, who was enveloped by the evil qi, was pushed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction by a strong burst of profound energy. Gu Jingyu's expression changed drastically as he immediately unleashed his own profound energy, trying to break the confinement of the evil qi. But his strength was not enough to shake Evil Tyrant. Instead, he spat out a big mouthful of blood due to his anger. Qing Luo dodge. Dodge! He only had time to shout out this sentence. These actions seemed to have consumed more than half of the time, but in fact it was just a moment. Yi Qing Luo saw the blood splattering in midair and heard Gu Jingyu's obviously weak but anxious voice. Her heart instantly felt stuffed. This evil tyrant was simply too sinister, using Gu Jingyu as a weapon to attack her together with the evil qi. If she avoided or counterattacked, the person who was seriously injured or even lost his life was Gu Jingyu. But if she didn't avoid, Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed. The current situation didn't allow her to consider any further. Her body had already instinctively made the most direct response. Her 5 fingers moved, and the glower flame fan was like a blazing flame, as it completely dyed her pair of charming pupils red. Following that, her figure turned into a red remnant shadow as she charged towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Gu Jingyu was shocked as he endured the surging sweetness in his chest. Qing Luo! Bam! A burst of explosive, profound energy was released from Gu Jingyu's surroundings. That celestial qi actually suppressed the evil aura that enveloped his body in an instant, although it was only that moment of suppression. But it also gave Yi Qing Luo a chance to attack. The glower flame fan in her hands quickly turned towards a direction. One hand took the opportunity to grab Gu Jingyu's shoulder. The other hand was the glower flame fan, which was filled with an intense, vicious qi, as it collided with the evil qi, which was attacking. Bam, bam, bam. A deafening explosion was heard, as though thunder had exploded. The entire Miao tribe shook violently once again. Yi Qing Luo dragged Gu Jingyu, as her physical strength was obviously not enough. Under the collision of these two forces, she, along with Gu Jingyu, were sent flying. Young sect Master Gu, are you all right? After Yi Qing Luo stabilized herself, the first thing she did was to support the man beside her. In a trance, Gu Jingyu opened his eyes. The young girl's pair of starry eyes were bright and resplendent as she looked at him worriedly. With just one look, Gu Jingyu felt that the empty space in his heart was instantly filled up. He curled his lips and wanted to laugh, but his whole body was drained of strength, so he couldn't lift his lips. Don't force yourself. Take a rest first. Yi Qing Luo immediately fed him a few medicinal pills and comforted him gently. Almost greedily, Gu Jingyu wanted to open his eyes and look at the face that was so close to him. His thin lips moved, wanting to speak. But it was the medicinal pill that Yi Qing Luo had fed him, sealing all his words. The imprints of the successors of the 4 major sects have appeared. As the successor of the sect leader, you will receive the protection of the 4 major sections. Yi Qing Luo's tone was very calm as her slender fingers brushed past Gu Jingyu's forehead. On Gu Jingyu's forehead, a feather-like imprint surfaced. This imprint was very similar to that fellow Yi Feng Yu's imprint. Thinking about it, this should be the West Continent, Gu Feng Sect's young sect master's imprint. Chapter 2985. Yes, your mark as the young matriarch of Wind Valley Sect has surfaced. Yi Qing Luo repeated with certainty as her fingers moved away from his forehead. Gu Jingyu's hand moved, as though he wanted to grab onto something. Between his brows, there was an obvious sense of disappointment. Yi Qing Luo thought that Gu Jingyu wanted to raise his hand to touch his mark as she comforted him warmly. The pills I fed you are all high-grade pills. Rest for a while and you will be able to regain your strength. Gu Jingyu's lips trembled. Even though it was stained with blood, it couldn't conceal the paleness of his lips. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways as her peripheral vision shot a glance at Xiaba, who was looking at them eerily as she squinted her eyes. Whatever you want to say it later. She stood up and turned towards Xiaba's direction. She repeated what old man Song had told her previously to Gu Jingyu. The Wind Valley sect mark on your forehead has appeared. The power of the four great sects will protect you. If the people from secluded Darkness Palace want to protect their own position in Nirvana Realm and cover up everything that they had done, they will absolutely not dare to touch you. Once they touch you, the Overlord will definitely sense the presence of the lower realm. If the Balance Historian comes to Nirvana Realm and interferes in this matter, then secluded Darkness Palace's painstaking efforts will all go to waste. This was like earlier when her profound jade heart exploded with powerful energy, leading to the Balance Historian's detection. According to rumors, the lower realm's four great sects were the servants left behind by the God Emperor to maintain the balance in the lower realm. Once the acknowledged successor met with any mishap, that would represent the collapse of one side's power. The balance in the lower realm would definitely be broken. The Balance Historian would absolutely not allow such an accident to happen. Gu Jingyu's breathing congealed, even though his mind was muddled, but he could still hear Yi Qing Luo's words clearly. His half-lidded eyes blinked hard. He tried his best to see the young lady in front of him more clearly, but all he could see was that slender, yet filled with boundless energy from her back. Her red robe was cut into numerous pieces as it hung on her body. She was obviously in a sorry state, but there was a unique charm to it. It made one to have an inexplicable confidence in her, inexplicably believing that even in a desperate situation, she could create miracles. "Ah, have you finished saying your last words to your little lover?" Xiaba laughed sinisterly, as though giving Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu the chance to speak earlier was already a favor to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were clear and cold. Her slender fingers gently caressed the azure du ring on her fingertip. Her lips curled up as she smiled lightly. "If you had come for me from the very beginning, perhaps I wouldn't be so angry." Her voice was clear and melodious, as if she was laughing. However, his tone was eerily cold. The smile on Xiaba's face stiffened a little. His brows rose as he looked at Yi Qing Luo with interest. His ability was above Yi Qing Luo. Right from the start, although Yi Qing Luo was facing him, she remained calm and composed. But Evil Tyrant could tell. His imposing manner had more or less awed Yi Qing Luo. Furthermore, Xiaba could obviously sense that Yi Qing Luo's profound energy, which was raised by the God Relic, was gradually dissipating. But Yi Qing Luo's attitude towards him had changed. She looked at him with a gaze as cold as ice, so calm that there wasn't a single ripple, as though towards him there was no longer any fear or awe. This kind of cognition made the sinister, cold smile on Xiaba's lips gradually thicken. If the prey could bring an unexpected surprise. Chapter 2986. Do you want to know the consequences of infuriating me? Yi Qing Luo's eyes seemed to be surging with flames. Her lips curled into a seductive smile as she slowly raised the hand which was holding the glower flame fan. Her slender 5 fingers tightened one by one. The red feather fan seemed to be plated with a layer of fire. The azure du ring on her fingertip also overflowed with red electric currents at this moment. Bit by bit, it enveloped Yi Qing Luo. Her entire being seemed to have stepped into a sea of fire as her entire body was burning with raging flames. The violent and ruthless aura entangled her and entangled her. Consequences. Xiaba didn't think much of it. Lass, aren't you a little too confident of yourself? Wanted to let him have a taste of the consequences? He was the overlord of an area in the Hell Palace. Even the Emperor of the Earth Realm had to take a detour when he saw him. This lass actually wanted to let him have a taste of the consequences? What a huge joke! Xiaba laughed sinisterly, This seat's tolerance towards the prey has made the prey develop the thought of turning over and becoming the master. Looks like it's time for the seat to let you know. Just where is the disparity between you and this seat? Following Xiaoba's words, around him, an explosive whirlwind was quickly stirred up around him. Various kinds of violent aura followed the whirlwind. His attitude was so free to do as he pleased. He totally didn't put Yi Qing Luo and the others in his eyes. He just stretched out his hand and pointed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. That whirlwind became even more violent. Endless black aura shot out from his fingertips. Bam! That burst of black, evil chi shot straight towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's brows were like frozen ice as her figure flashed and instantly evaded it. The evil chi crashed onto the ground, causing the ground, which had already turned into ruins, to splatter once again. That strike had a monstrous chi wave. Xiaba squinted his eyes, and when he saw Yi Qing Luo evading this attack, his lips revealed a ridiculing cold smile. These evil energy blades won't end so easily. Let this seat see how long you can last. His cold and gloomy voice rang out in a leisurely manner. Following that, streams of black nefarious aura attacked him one after another like sharp weapons. Xiaba was completely nonchalant. Where is the finger pointing? Sharp blades, made of demonic energy, shot out from that direction. Furthermore, the chi waves surged like surging waves, one wave after another, becoming more and more turbulent. Such dense, evil energy blades. To Yi Qing Luo, it was like a submachine gun was constantly shooting at her. Just as Evil Tyrant was feeling smug and relaxed, shooting in all directions, suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his raised arm. Immediately after, a gust of strong wind blew in the air. Xiaba reacted quickly and tried to dodge. But when he dodged to the side to avoid the oncoming force, he felt a chill run down his spine. Bang! A fist with scorching power landed on his face. Xiaba's figure was sent flying. In an instant, a series of rumbling sounds rang out. The ruins and the surroundings once again shook as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. A powerful surge of energy spread out in the air. Boom! Xiaba fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. His body swayed a few times. He rubbed his face in pain. The place which Yi Qing Luo had hit seemed to be on fire. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Xiaba's mouth. He raised his hand and wiped off the blood stains on his lips bit by bit. Chapter 2987. Xiaba's self-confidence made him totally not notice it, just as he kept shooting out the evil chi sharp blades. That figure which was speedily shuttling through the evil chi sharp blades was already carrying a blazing rage as it got closer and closer to him. The figure was flickering and flickering, getting closer and closer. Xiaba, who was totally unguarded and extremely conceited, naturally he fell for it, towards Xiaba's tricks. Yi Qing Luo had already been trained countless times by that bunch of old men in the Yi family in different ways back in the 21st century. Facing a hail of bullets, she was able to barge through it without any change in expression. Moreover, it was only at Xiaba's level. Although Yi Qing Luo had used the Azure Du Ring's last extreme energy, plus using her own blink movement secret art to upgrade her footwork, she speedily moved to Xiaba's side and struck out these two moves. She had also successfully injured Xiaba and even saw blood. But after all, it wasn't a vital point that was injured, just that after 2 mouthfuls of blood were spat out, Xiaba then wiped his lips, as his expression had not changed at all. On the contrary, Yi Qing Luo, after striking out 2 moves, the red electric current which was circulating around her body slowly dissipated. The young lady's flame seemed to have been sucked away by something at this instance. That slender figure floated gently in the breeze. Her face was pale, as though she would fall down from midair at any time. This pair of moves, It looked as though Xie Ba had fallen pathetically injured. But in actual fact, Yi Qing Luo's energy consumption was even greater. It's been a long time since I've smelled my own fresh blood. Xie Ba's sinister cold voice was slightly crazed as it rang. That withered finger of his lightly wiped his own lips. Black, evil qi enshrouded. That lips, that hand, were extremely terrifying. That pair of death god-like eyes was filled with an excited expression, staring at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. He stuck out his tongue. It swept past the bloodstains on his fingertips. He laughed again. His laughter was extremely strange, filled with madness. It made one's hair stand on end. Young lass, you're not bad. This seat is getting more and more interested in you. That gloomy tone, no matter how one listened, it was penetrating. Yi Qing Luo's fingers were clenched tightly as there wasn't a single trace of warmth on her icy, cold face. Her charming eyes were icy cold as she stared at Xie Ba. Her breathing was slightly messy and heavy. This seat really wanted to ask the palace, Lord of Seclusion Palace, for you. If I bring you back to Hell Palace, that bunch of lunatics would be willing to spend time on you. Ba grinned sinisterly as he touched his chin. The wound on his face and the blood-red birthmark kept wriggling as he grinned hideously. Faintly there was some evil qi. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk. Luo! Luo! Old man Tsang sensed Yi Qing Luo's intention and immediately voiced out to stop her. Hell Palace's lunatics, none of them are normal. Furthermore, his strength is unfathomable. Even I can't detect his profound rank. If you were really brought to the Hell sect by him, even if the Overlord succeeded in curing the goo, he might not be able to bring you out of the Hell sect safely. If you're really brought to Hell Palace by him, even if the Overlord succeeds in curing the goo, perhaps he might not be able to bring you out safely. Old man Tsang's agitation made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. Chapter 2988. Yi Qing Luo was very clear about this point. It wasn't just the power of the azure water ring that couldn't be activated. She only had a few elixirs left to quickly replenish her energy and heal her internal injuries. Out of habit, she placed everything in the profound phoenix ring. She placed the profound phoenix ring beside DMO Xian to accompany him. She only brought a few bottles of pills with her. If all of these pills were consumed, he would definitely die. With her weak body, she would not be able to withstand Evil Tyrant's attack. Only by using the power of the Azure Water Ring did he manage to injure the Evil Tyrant. Now, without the power of the Azure Dew Bracelet, indeed, she was no match for Xie Ba. Or perhaps, in her current state, unless she used the teleportation secret technique, she wouldn't be able to escape. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to force Evil Tyrant's attack away. Most importantly, she couldn't escape yet. Although the Saintess courtyard was complicated, with Miao Ji's cautiousness, she had set up a lot of Miaozhong formations. However, no matter how cautious he was, unfortunately, the Miao tribe already had spies from the gloomy palace. It was only a matter of time before the place where DMO Xian cured the goo was found. If she escaped, that would be giving the Palace of Darkness a chance to hurt DMO Xian. Currently, Dark Nether Palace's people were worried that Saintess Institute had too many gooworms, so they did not dare to act rashly. However, if the madman Xie Ba came, he would not have any misgivings, nor would he care about how many people would die. There was a high possibility that Xie Ba had chosen to split the entire sacred nun courtyard apart to find DMO Xian. She would never allow such a thing to happen. Miao Ji had already ascended. There was only Miao Yi in the secret room of the Saintess courtyard. She could not let anything disturb Miao Yi. Hopefully Yan Xiao Yi and the others could bring Qi Yan and Shi Ju to stop the people from the Palace of Darkness. Jia, jia, jia. Evil Tyrant's sinister laughter suddenly rang in his ears. That twisted and crazed face, his pair of bloodthirsty and greedy eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo. Why? You were so arrogant just a moment ago, and now you're refusing to speak? It's okay. Little girl, don't be afraid. He swung his right hand, which was almost crippled by Yi Qing Luo earlier. The stinging pain in his arm made the smile on his face even crazier. The stronger Yi Qing Luo was, the stronger the resistance. The more Xiaba thought about it, the more interesting it was. His crazed eyes were filled with admiration towards Yi Qing Luo. Of course, this admiration wasn't the admiration of a senior towards a junior. Instead, he was extremely appreciative of the power contained within her body. So much so that he already had the impulse to cut open Yi Qing Luo on the spot to study her profound jade heart, her meridians, internal organs, and so on. His greedy eyes were blazing hot. How could Yi Qing Luo possibly not feel it? She gripped the glowing flame, fanned tightly, and glanced at the deep water ring. In her heart, she had already made up her mind. Lass, you can't do this. Old man Tsang sensed the ups and downs of Yi Qing Luo's emotions and anxiously shouted out. Old man Tsang, Yi Qing Luo's voice was very light, with a trace of undetectable bitterness. It's always Xian who's been protecting me with his life, with his skills and strength. It was impossible for him to be poisoned by Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong. He did it to protect me, because he loved me. She pursed her lips tightly, as her eyes had already turned red. She tried her best to hold back the tears in her eyes, not allowing them to fall. Chapter 2989. How many times in the past I enjoyed Xian's protection and care, and I got through one crisis after another. Now, it's my turn to protect Xian. Protect the man who has always loved me, doted on me, held me in the palm of his hand, doted on and doted on. Love is a matter between two people. She could not always rely on Mo Xian's love, unscrupulously enjoying Mo Xian's contribution. She also loved Mo Xian, just like how Mo Xian loved her. She was willing to sacrifice her life for Mo Xian. However, her eyelashes fluttered, and she lowered her eyes. I want to protect Xian. At the very least, I want to hold on until he can cure him of the curse. It's just that I'm really sorry. Old man Tsang wanted to say something. He suddenly felt as if the azure dew bracelet had been scalded by something. Even old man Tsang's body began to heat up. Old man Tsang's tone suddenly rose. Luo girl, Yi Qing Luo's bloody fingertip pressed onto the azure dew bracelet and said in a low voice, Old man Tsang, I promised you that I would help you recover your human form. If anything happens to me, you should follow Xian. With Xian around, you will definitely be better than you are now. Little girl Luo. Old man Tsang only had time to call out. Then his spiritual body was corroded by the overwhelming heat. Yi Qing Luo was forcefully removing the blood pact with him, starting from Yi Qing Luo's rage. Old man Tsang realized what Yi Qing Luo was trying to do to stop Xiaba, but he didn't expect Yi Qing Luo would really make up her mind. Furthermore, he was prepared to die, just to delay Xiaba, to buy time for Mo Xian to cure the poison. Yi Qing Luo didn't even know if Miao Yi had the confidence to cure Mo Xian. There was no way to be sure. Would Mo Xian explode after removing the love goo? Only the centrifugal force goo was left. In that case, Mo Xian wouldn't even remember her. It was even more impossible for him to understand everything she had done for him. In this way, was there really any meaning to it? Even so, old man Tsang still didn't have the intention to ask. In front of him, gradually because of that drop of blood that Yi Qing Luo had dripped in, it started to become hazy and blurry. Just when old man Tsang thought that he was going to fall into a deep slumber, suddenly, something warm brushed past his forehead. A clear and ethereal voice faintly rang in his ears. She's always so reckless. This blood pact cannot be broken. I can only trouble you to continue taking care of her. That voice was ethereal, as if the wind was speaking. He spoke very softly and slowly. If one did not listen carefully, one might not even hear it. However, Old Man Song could hear the helplessness and faint pampering in that tone of voice. Who was that? Old Man Song tried his best to open his eyes. He wanted to clearly see who exactly was the person who could converse with his spiritual body. However, as that warm touch brushed across his entire body, Old Man Song could no longer maintain his consciousness and fell into a deep sleep. Yi Qing Luo, who didn't know what was going on, thought that she had already rescinded the blood pact with Old Man Song. So she faced Xiaba head-on, fearlessly looking at him, her pink lips gently raised into an extremely shallow cold arc. There was no expression on Qing Cheng's face. That pair of charming eyes was flowing with a cold glint without any warmth at all. Yi Qing Luo didn't say any unnecessary nonsense. Her 5 fingers moved, and the glower flame fan opened up. Chapter 2990. A dazzling red glow blossomed from her palm. The coquettish glower fan seemed to have blended into the flame as it kept burning along with a profound qi. She narrowed her eyes as her entire body emitted a murderous aura as she charged forward. Yi Qing Luo's speed was extremely fast as her figure swiftly stuck close to Xiaba. Young lass, this seat will not give you a second chance. Xiaba gave a cold laugh. After suffering a loss from Yi Qing Luo once, he was already on his guard against Yi Qing Luo's figure, adding on to the fact that Yi Qing Luo had already lost the god relic's energy consolidation. Xiaba only needed to put in a little bit of effort, and he easily saw Yi Qing Luo's swift, revolving footwork clearly. He tugged his lips coldly as he speedily turned towards the direction of the attack and launched a counterattack. Both parties were instantly entangled together. The entire space was enveloped in this oppressive and terrifying aura. Yi Qing Luo's attacks were vicious, as she had no intention of stopping the battle. Whereas after Xiaba was injured by Yi Qing Luo, his heart was already filled with anger. After exchanging over 10 moves, Yi Qing Luo's body was already riddled with injuries, and by this time, Xiaba had already seen through all of Yi Qing Luo's moves. Every time Yi Qing Luo launched another wave of attacks, she was able to swiftly retaliate. This made Yi Qing Luo's battle even more strenuous. Yi Qing Luo was extremely clear about this change. No matter if it was Xiaba or the group of disciples who had escaped far away but kept peeking their heads out to spectate the battle, or the clansmen, they all understood the situation in front of them very clearly. Yi Qing Luo was absolutely not Xiaba's opponent. Furthermore, the disparity was simply too huge. Young lass, this farce should end now. Other than bringing you back, I have other tasks. Xiaba's lips curled up coldly as he spoke coldly when Yi Qing Luo was once again pushed back and spitting out blood. Yi Qing Luo's hand, which was clutching the glower fan, tightened. Her breathing started to become messy. After hearing Xiaba's words, that emotionless face faintly surfaced a trace of complicated fluctuations. That pair of eyes couldn't help but flicker. Task, Xiaba's task. Was it referring to Di Emotian? Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk. Following this, her eyes squinted as a piercingly cold light shot toward Xiaba like a sharp blade. Then she lifted her slender fingers and quickly pressed them against her chest. Xiaba only assumed that Yi Qing Luo had suffered a serious injury which led to her internal discomfort. He totally disregarded Yi Qing Luo's actions. More accurately, he totally disapproved of Yi Qing Luo's ability, even though Yi Qing Luo had injured him once. However, the moment Xiaba let his guard down, when he came back to his senses, Yi Qing Luo suddenly waved the glower flame fan in her hands. Countless bewitching rays were emitted from the devouring flame fan in the form of red silvery threads that wrapped around Xiaba from all directions. Evil Tyrant relaxed. He didn't even have time to react. His limbs were completely bound by the red silver threads. Yi Qing Luo retracted her fingers. The devouring flame fan closed. The countless silver threads that wrapped around Xiaba's body also tightened. Xiaba frowned, and his eyes turned cold. Xiaba! Yi Qingluo's voice was slightly chilly as her pink lips curled slightly with a bloodthirsty arc. I will not give you any chance to do other tasks. As her voice fell, she clenched her fingers even tighter. The red-silver threads cut into Xiaba's flesh. Chapter 2991. Little lass, do you think this will be able to trap the seat? Xiaba scoffed lightly as he lowered his eyes to stare at the silver wires which kept embedding into his flesh as the gloominess in his eyes grew. This was the second time he was hurt by this lass. Did she think that using the net created by the glower flame fan would be able to trap him? Little lass was still a little lass. She was still too inexperienced. Really? Then go ahead and try. Yi Qingluo's lips curled as she gave a ridiculing smile. Her eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule towards Xiaba, as though she had absolute confidence towards the net which she created herself. Following that, Yi Qingluo unleashed her profound energy as she transferred it onto the glower flame fan. Xiaba could obviously feel that the silver wires which wound around his body was getting tighter and tighter. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Perhaps it was because of this disturbing net which bound him till it hurt a little. Perhaps it was Yi Qingluo's self-confidence and provocation which angered him. Xiaba's slender brows suddenly creased tightly, as his tensed arms suddenly lifted up forcefully. That shriveled 5 fingers also clenched tightly into a fist. The next moment, those black profound chi which was cut apart by the net suddenly seemed as though it had spiritual consciousness, as it gathered together in a turbulent manner, as it surged towards Xiaba's direction, surging towards him. Vigorous and boundless energy. Instantly, it surged violently on Xiaba's body. The rolling profound energy was like a stormy sea as it kept on surging. Bam, bam, bam. A few cracking sounds were heard. The black demonic chi was like a thunder explosion. Those demonic red silver wires which wound around his body instantly broke apart as it poured out in torrents. Bam! Yi Qingluo was also forced to fly backwards by this gust of energy as she crashed heavily onto a piece of waste rock. Gigi. A sinister smile was overflowing from Xiaba's mouth. Chi waves dispersed. Xiaba stood in the middle, safe and sound, other than the blood on his body which had been cut out by the net. His entire person seemed as though nothing had happened before. His expression had not changed a single bit, whereas the scene made those onlookers who were afraid of death all sucked in a cold breath. Xiaba actually broke Yi Qingluo's net binding. Could it be that there was really nothing that could restrain this terrifying person? Yi Qingluo, who was sent flying slowly, propped herself up. Her slender fingers were still pressing against her chest. The failure of the net did not make her feel pity or dejected. Instead, he was blasted away by Xiaba. He revealed a mocking sneer. That smile was so brilliant it made Xiaba feel uneasy for some reason. He originally thought that the shattering web would make Yi Qingluo turn pale with fright, and then it slowly dissipated. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Yi Qingluo's expression was too strange. Just as the atmosphere was stifling and depressing, they stared at each other in silence. Suddenly, a deafening explosion came from not far away. Roar! Roar! Clang! Clang! What followed were 2 sharp, beastly cries. The horizon was instantly enveloped by a ball of flames. When Yi Qingluo heard this voice, her back instantly stiffened as she speedily glanced sideways towards the direction of the voice. On the horizon, Qi Yan's colorful phoenix feathers streaked across the sky. Shi Ju's figure flashed from time to time. It was the direction of Holy Maiden Institute. The chi waves over there were tumultuous. The sand and stones on the ground flew everywhere, and there was a hurricane howling. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly expanded. The smile at the corner of his mouth slowly froze on his face. Dark Palace's people had already found the direction of Holy Maiden Institute. Chapter 2992. Still in the mood to care about others? By her ear, Xia Ba's gloomy voice was just inches away. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled fiercely. She quickly regained her senses, but no matter how fast she couldn't beat Xia Ba, who was already closing in on her. The incoming black evil aura landed directly on her shoulder. Oh! Yi Qing Luo gave a dull moan as her face turned pale. Her figure swiftly retreated backwards, avoiding Xia Ba's attack range. She panted lightly. She quickly fed the remaining pills into her mouth. Little lass, don't worry, I will bring you to meet your group of brothers soon. Xia Ba saw that Yi Qing Luo's gaze was still on the Sacred Maiden Institute's side after being struck by his palm as he laughed sinisterly. Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she didn't hear what he said. As she panted lightly, her gaze quickly wandered around the Palace of Darkness's side. Finally, when she didn't see the figure she was looking for, she pursed her lips tightly as a sliver of panic surfaced on her face. Wolf Saint Technique and Fox Saint Technique were no longer around. Even that magical beast blood sacrifice, which looked like a dinosaur, had disappeared. Palace of Darkness's target was Mo Xian. Miao Ji's ascension had exposed Mo Xian's location. Those two people had definitely brought people and rushed over to the Sacred Maiden Institute. Even if Wolf Saint Technique and Fox Saint Technique were heavily injured. But no one could guarantee it. Palace of Darkness could only invite this madman from the Underworld Palace, as though to confirm Yi Qing Luo's guess. It was just so coincidental. Over at the Sacred Maiden Institute side, a burst of energy which seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth suddenly appeared. That burst of energy enveloped the entire Miao tribe in an instant. Endless, surging, profound energy, charged, enveloping everything in the Miao tribe. Found it! Immediately following that, a sharp and steady voice broke through the air. Young Master Mo, come over. The person in the dark has been found. A black figure appeared above the Sacred Maiden Pavilion. A majestic and violent profound energy was emitted from his body. His black robe was fluttering from the strong qi. At this moment, the seemingly young face of the youth was filled with seriousness. It was totally inconsistent with the temperament he was emitting. Following the sound of the voice, a white silhouette flew past. One in black and one in white, two slender but steady youths stood back to back. Yi Qing Luo saw their faces clearly. Wasn't it Gui Wu and Zhou Mo? Ever since the disciple of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness attacked, neither Gui Wu nor Zhou Mo had any plans to take action. Zhou Mo would occasionally take action to clean up Kitty Li when she was injured. Gui Wu's intention was to watch with folded arms. In Yi Qing Luo's heart, she more or less knew the reason behind this. The identities of Gui Wu and Zhou Mo were clearly extremely mysterious. Yi Qing Luo was almost certain. These two people were definitely not from the Nirvana realm. In the Nirvana realm, Wen Yan Xiao Yi and the rest weren't in any real danger. The ghost martial artist would definitely not harm others. That was because the moment Gui Wu made his move, that would be violating the balance of the Nirvana realm. Now, Gui Wu was not the only one who had taken action. Zhou Mo and Gui Wu also fought side by side. From this, it could be seen how powerful his opponent was. Yi Qing Luo's face turned slightly pale as it turned a little ugly. Yeah, I've never expected to see such powerful people in the lower realm. Xia Ba also felt this powerful energy as he looked over with interest. Chapter 2993. Leng Yan. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as her fingers clenched tightly, Secluded Palace has really put in a lot of effort. Just because of a favor, they made 2 people from Hell Palace become their lackeys. Xia Ba stared angrily at her as his eyes were filled with a strange, gloomy coldness. Little lass, trying to worm information out of this seat? You're still too tender. His gaping wound that revealed his flesh and ghastly white bones was also a ghastly sight to behold. However, I can tell you, Lan Yan is indeed over there, doing his mission. Yi Qing Luo's face turned completely pale. She couldn't even maintain her pretense of composure. Over at Sacred Maiden Institute, there was really another madman from Hell Palace. One Xia Ba had already made her anxious, and she had no way to deal with him. If there was another Lan Yan, how could Yen Xiao Yi and the rest be their match? Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, could they stop that madman called Lan Yan? I really don't know what's over there that is worth your attention. Xia Ba sneered coldly as he swept a disdainful glance toward Sacred Maiden Institute's direction. Little lass, after this seat finishes dealing with you, I still need to go over to help. Since you're so worried over there, why not follow the seat over? Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed. You guys don't know the reason why Secluded Palace asked you to go over there? Saying that, she pointed towards Sacred Maiden Institute's direction. What motive? Isn't important. As long as this seat exterminates that piece of land, destroying everything in the Miao tribe, to return Secluded Palace's favor, that's enough. Apparently, Xia Ba was still concerned about Yi Qing Luo's lackey. Yi Qing Luo's eyes darkened when she heard that. It was indeed as she had guessed, based on the madman's character. Why would he search for Mo Xian's whereabouts? Directly exterminating that piece of land to complete the mission would do. Then all the more she couldn't let Xia Ba go over to Sacred Maiden Institute. Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes as she sensed her heart, that profound jade heart which was slowly spreading its energy. She slowly let out a long breath. Still trying to struggle, Xia Ba saw Yi Qing Luo's look and couldn't help but ridicule her. Yi Qing Luo abruptly opened her eyes as a cold ray of light flashed past. The corners of her lips curled up into an icy smile. You'll know very soon whether or not this is a final struggle. I've said it before, I'll let you know the consequences of angering me. Her slender fingers once again pressed on her chest. A bewitching red light blossomed from his palm. This action made Xia Ba frown, as he didn't really understand what Yi Qing Luo's motive was. If Xia Ba took a closer look, perhaps he could see it. The place where Yi Qing Luo's palm was pressing was not the heart. Instead, the location of the profound heart jade. He was right. It was the profound heart jade. That one and only divine phoenix profound heart jade. From the moment they realized that Mo Xian was the target of the Nether Palace, Yi Qing Luo had already decided on this idea. Her profound jade heart could urge her to release a strength that was even more formidable than that of the deep water ring. When he pressed his palm against the profound heart jade for the first time, Yi Qing Luo had already taken out the tranquil bead, which stabilized her divine phoenix profound heart jade. Her profound heart jade had been depleted numerous times. Forcefully activating the profound heart jade's energy, the consequence was that she might suffer from the backlash of the divine phoenix profound heart jade. But if she could control Xia Ba, to gain some time for Mo Xian to cure the goo, all these would be worth it. Chapter 2994. The only thing that could restrain Xia Ba was her divine phoenix profound heart jade. Yi Qing Luo could sense that the profound heart jade in her body was stirring in response to her summoning. A scorching feeling slowly spread in her chest. The change in aura made Xia Ba's gaze immediately turn towards Yi Qing Luo. Don't tell me there's still some god relic? Xia Ba opened his mouth coldly as his death god's eyes stared intently at Yi Qing Luo, but after staring for some time, But he didn't see Yi Qing Luo moving at all. Xia Ba frowned. The evil aura that lingered around his body seemed to be urging him to do something, as it continued to churn. No matter what, I will not let you have the chance to use it. Xia Ba immediately lost the mood to tease Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's current state was simply too strange. That kind of fearless attitude. It really gave him an ominous premonition. Xia Ba flew up, and his palms, which were filled with evil qi, directly struck towards the top of Yi Qing Luo's skull. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath as she mobilized the profound energy in her body and quickly displayed her footwork. Only she had just moved a step. It was as if Xia Ba had already predicted where she would go next. She had yet to stand firm. Yi Qing Luo felt a burst of sinister, cold glint, like a sharp blade, pressing towards her, no matter how fast her speed was. At this moment, she had barely avoided a fatal blow. The aftershock of that palm strike shook her so much that she felt as if her internal organs were churning inside her chest. Yi Qing Luo felt a fishy sweetness in her throat as she spat out a mouthful of blood. "It's time to end this," Xia Ba said coldly, looking at Yi Qing Luo's extremely pale face. His lips tugged coldly as he gathered his evil qi once again. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as the hand which was pressing on her chest exerted more force. Just as Xia Ba was about to attack again, just as her profound heart jade was about to move and was about to activate its protection function, suddenly a warm current brushed past Yi Qing Luo's chest. It easily suppressed the restless, profound heart jade. This change, this warm current, made Yi Qing Luo slightly stunned. He was still in a daze. Soon after, she felt a burning sensation of fullness, as if a raging fire had engulfed her chest. "Oh!" Yi Qing Luo let out a painful moan. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. His body seemed to have suddenly lost all its strength, becoming as light as a feather. And at this moment, Xia Ba, who was attacking Yi Qing Luo, this palm didn't have the time to land. He was sent flying by the sudden burst of rays from Yi Qing Luo's body. Xia Ba retreated a few steps and looked at his palm in disbelief. He had yet to strike, and then he looked at the young girl in front of him. This is the breakthrough. Xia Ba's eyes widened, and the red birthmark on his face expanded as he moved. The girl in front of him was engulfed in a storm. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth merged with the storm bit by bit and slowly seeped into the girl's body. It was a storm. It was like a sturdy protective shield. Even he was unable to get close to interrupt Yi Qing Luo's advancement. He could only watch helplessly as the storm around the young girl's body surged madly, faster and faster. That lightning-fast speed kept gushing madly into Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo felt as if there was a roar ringing in her head. Her profound heart jade was scorching hot, as though she was in a sea of fire. Bam! It was as if something had knocked hard on his heart. Chapter 2995. Red light flickered in her clear and charming eyes, enchanting and elegant. Xiao Chen's red clothes were like fire, making the red light look even more resplendent, giving off a subduing aura. 3,000 strands of black hair danced in the air due to the violent surge of energy. Faintly, a few flame-like flower petals could be seen on the girl's fair and smooth forehead. Xia Ba's body stiffened. Did he see wrongly? The girl's body was filled with surging, profound force. The waves of bewitching red light, was it an illusion? That mark, how could it appear on a person from the lower realm? Xia Ba's heart trembled, and he immediately looked over. However, at the same time, the raging windstorm ferociously scurried into Yi Qing Luo's body, as it completely merged into her body. The dazzling light pierced Xia Ba's eyes, causing him to feel a stinging pain. When Evil Tyrant looked over again, the girl's black hair was like a waterfall, scattered over her shoulders. The red glow on his body also dissipated. His forehead was smooth, and there were no marks on it. It was an illusion. It must have been an illusion. Xiaba's heart slowly calmed down. "Little girl, do you think that you can deal with me just because you broke through the barrier?" Xiaba smirked disdainfully and said with a cold smile, "Do you know that no matter how much you improve, my strength will always be above yours?" The young girl, who was as pretty as a flower, looked at Xiaba indifferently. There was not the slightest hint of emotion on her beautiful face. It was as if he didn't appreciate Xiaba's confident words at all. Yi Qing Luo's attitude made Xiaba's expression turned extremely ugly. To Yi Qing Luo, this little prey, Xiaba only felt that this lass was really strange. Several times it had exceeded his imagination. Xiaba was certain that Yi Qing Luo wasn't his match. But don't look at how Xiaba seemed to be deliberately teasing Yi Qing Luo. In order to capture his prey for fun, he deliberately held back, allowing Yi Qing Luo to make astonishing counterattacks time and time again. However, only Xiaba knew this clearly in his heart. He had long since been injured by Yi Qing Luo for the first time. He no longer had the mood to tease her, especially after Leng Yan was discovered by the two youths, one black and one white. He was even less inclined to stay in the lower realm. Although those two youths appeared to be young, they were extremely powerful. However, he couldn't sense their profound ranks or profound qi fluctuations at all. He could not sense it. There were only two possibilities. Firstly, those two were ordinary people. Secondly, those two people's profound ranks were at least 5 ranks higher than his. Obviously, those two belonged to the latter group. Xiaba had no choice but to face this seriously. Although their underworld palace was known for being daring and arrogant, they were not people who dared to act recklessly. But it has been preserved until now. It was also because no matter how arrogant they would absolutely not cross the bottom line of the balance of the 3 dimensions. Just like in the Earth domain, they committed atrocities and cultivated evil arts before things got out of hand. Even if the Emperor of the Earth realm knew about it, he would turn a blind eye to it. But now they snuck into the lower realm and worked together with the gloomy palace to destroy the peace in the lower realm. Once this matter was known by the upper realm, those who had grievances against them would definitely suppress them. He did not want to lose his life for the sake of returning a favor to the palace of darkness. Xiaba clenched his withered fingers tightly, and the evil aura around his body quickly revolved. Chapter 2996. Yi Qing Luo Surroundings. That surge of protective shield which was formed due to her advancement had already disappeared. Xiaba didn't have any hesitation as his sinister attacks met hers head-on. He had to end this battle quickly. Xiaba's eyes turned gloomy as a sinister aura burst forth. Yi Qing Luo's calm eyes quietly looked at the direction where Xiaba was attacking from. She could feel it clearly. Within her body, there seemed to be something, slowly brushing past all her internal injuries, as though she had been reborn. Her entire body felt extremely relaxed. Most importantly, earlier when she crossed hands with Xiaba's speed was even faster than hers. She was unable to detect Xiaba's silhouette at the first instance. She could only rely on her own judgment and acute senses to guess the direction of Xiaba's attack. But now, right after she had advanced, she could actually see through Xiaba's movements. Yi Qing Luo's pupils flashed slightly. At the instant when Xiaba's sinister aura coiled around her, she clenched her fists tightly as her body suddenly rolled backwards, using an extremely strange posture to avoid Xiaba's attack. Yi Qing Luo's figure was graceful, and her unhurried movements made Xiaba slightly stunned, as though he was extremely shocked that Yi Qing Luo was able to avoid his attack so easily. Xiaba frowned as he didn't believe it as he launched the next attack. The sinister aura surged as the airwaves became even more turbulent. His speed also increased by several notches. Only, just as Xiaba thought that he had no chance of losing, Yi Qing Luo rolled on the ground again, but she didn't seem to be in a sorry state as she avoided this move. Immediately following that, Yi Qing Luo's figure swiftly retreated. She clenched her fingers tightly as her alluring eyes seemed to be burning with flames. The glower flame fan in her hands suddenly waved out numerous wind blades. Thunder rumbled as lightning flashed. Those wind blades were like sharp blades as they sliced through the sky full of flying sand. Xiad Ba's heart jolted as he narrowed his eyes sinisterly. Both his hands moved as he speedily avoided those wind blades. Swish, swish, swish. Helplessly, those wind blades' power was extremely huge, and the quantity was huge. No matter how fast Xiad Ba's speed was, his body was brushed by several wind blades, leaving behind several blood scars. Xiad Ba's body spun in the air and landed heavily on the ground. He steadied himself and stared at the wound that had been grazed by the wind blade with a gloomy expression. It was just a promotion, and it was able to raise Yi Qing Luo's ability to such an extent. Not only could he see through his moves, and it could even give him the strongest counterattack. This little prey had really given him too many surprises. These surprises, if they gave it to the palace of gloomy darkness for nothing, it was not worth it at all. Xiad Ba's cold eyes flashed with a trace of sinister coldness. A thought formed in his mind. Xiad Ba's sinister eyes were filled with a ruthless and bloodthirsty cold glint. Yi Qing Luo, you're really an interesting little thing. This seat has decided not to bother about whatever secluded palace, whatever favor. These ferocious and crazy words. This made Yi Qing Luo's brows creased slightly. Xiad Ba wanted her to bring him to the Hell Palace? As though to verify Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. Xiad Ba's maniacal and greedy eyes were staring at her without blinking. Those favors can't be compared to the uniqueness of your prey. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists tightly. She sensed the profound energy which kept scouring her limbs and bones after the promotion. The profound grade which had not had any activity for a long time. This time round, she was mysteriously promoted. Yi Qing Luo herself felt that it was inconceivable. Chapter 2997. The discomfort from forcefully activating her profound jade heart was suppressed. The profound qi circulating within her body was also progressing in an orderly manner, as though there was some kind of energy guiding it. Yi Qing Luo suddenly recalled earlier when her profound jade heart was about to activate its protective consciousness, that flash of warmth. Somehow she felt. There was an inexplicable sense of familiarity, only no matter how she recalled. He could not recall when he had felt such a warm current. Lang Yan, according to the original plan, destroy the Miao tribe, then come over and help me bring this lass to the underworld palace. She suddenly heard Xiad Ba's gloomy and cold voice. Destroy the Miao tribe. These 4 words made Yi Qing Luo suddenly regain her senses. Following that, she saw Xiad Ba holding a ball of evil qi in his palm, as he was talking to that evil qi. Very quickly, she heard a hoarse and gloomy male voice coming from the evil qi. You can't even catch a young lass? You still need my help? This month, I am the lord of the underworld palace. How dare you disrespect me? Xiad Ba's hair stood on end as he bellowed in rage. That gloomy male voice sneered in disdain. Yes, 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 Lord Hell, I'll destroy the Miao tribe right now and come over to help you. Saying that, the black qi in Xiad Ba's palm dispersed. Bam, bam, bam. Following that, the entire space started to shake violently. The Miao tribe, which had already turned into ruins, started to slowly collapse downwards. Yi Qing Luo's vision looked towards the direction of the Sacred Maiden Institute. As expected, on that side a violent gale was howling. Endless sand and rocks were flying, obscuring everything over there. Only the scarlet flame, which was overflowing with colors, brought a trace of brilliance. Profound qi clashed, clashing continuously. Apparently, a fierce battle was about to break out. The ground collapsed, those disciples who were still alive, or the clansmen who were fleeing in agony. It made Yi Qing Luo's pupils constricted. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, and the others didn't stop that man called Leng Yan? No way. She absolutely could not let Leng Yan destroy the Miao tribe. She could not let Leng Yan alarm Miao Yi, who was in the secret room. She could not disturb Xian's Gu removal. Once the Gu removal was interrupted, not only Miao Yi and Mo Xian might suffer the backlash of the Gu worm, their lives would also be in danger. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled violently. It was as if something was ruthlessly strangling her heart, causing her to feel stifled and flustered, unable to calm down. "TSK, is there really something over there that you're so interested in?" Xia Ba clicked his tongue as his eyes wandered between Gu Jingyu and Yi Qing Luo. "This gaze of yours is much more passionate than when you look at your little lover." Yi Qing Luo totally didn't have any intention to bother about him as she leapt up and charged towards the direction of Sacred Maiden Courtyard. A strong gust of wind blocked her way. The demonic energy wrapped around her, sealing her footsteps. Xia Ba laughed coldly. "Little girl, even if you rush over there, it will be useless. Leng Yan's destructive power is unparalleled. Don't think you'll be safe just because you found 2 helpers from other realms to help you stop him. What a pity. Leng Yan's goal is to destroy the Miao tribe, to turn the Miao tribe from this world into a void space." Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped. She abruptly raised her eyes as she stared at Xia Ba. "You didn't hear wrongly, even if they can stop Leng Yan's men. But they can't stop Leng Yan's destructive power. After tomorrow, the Miao tribe will completely disappear from this world, falling into a void space." Chapter 2998. All living things in the Miao tribe will turn into nothingness. All living things in the Miao tribe will turn into nothingness. All living things in the Miao tribe will turn into nothingness. This sentence kept on replaying in Yi Qing Luo's mind. Yi Qing Luo's brain was so shocked by this sentence that her eardrums were buzzing. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed together. The pain was so intense that she could barely breathe. "Xian, her Xian!" Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly enlarged. "Young lass, you'd better obediently follow this seat to the underworld palace. If you're able to gain this seat's liking, this seat can still take you in as a disciple, and in future, you might even inherit this seat's position." Xia Ba looked at Yi Qing Luo's extremely pale face as he laughed sinisterly. However, the current Yi Qing Luo totally didn't hear it. Her mind was filled with Mo Xian's figure. His mind was filled with evil tyrant's words. Xian was still in the process of curing the Gu. If Leng Yan destroyed the Saintess Pavilion, all the living beings of the Miao tribe were destroyed in an instant, reduced to nothingness. Even if it was Mo Xian, he would not be able to escape this calamity. She would never let that happen. She could not let Xian disappear. She had to rush to Xian's side. She had to protect Xian. Yi Qing Luo's pair of eyes gradually surfaced a trace of extremely strange red glow. That redness in Yi Qing Luo's pupils was like a thin thread spreading outwards. It looked extremely horrifying. Xia Ba was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's vicious aura. Following that, he was overwhelmed with joy. He was on the verge of going crazy as he stared at Yi Qing Luo in excitement. Previously, when he said that he wanted to take Yi Qing Luo in as his disciple, it was merely because he had the intention to tease her. But now he sincerely wanted to take Yi Qing Luo in as his disciple. He never expected that he would be able to encounter such a good seedling in the lower realms. His understanding of this lass was constantly being refreshed. This girl, regardless of whether it was her ever-changing strength or his personality, they were all to his liking. Xia Ba was ecstatic as he went up to pull Yi Qing Luo. Now, even though he was being criticized by the other lunatics of the underworld palace, he also had to ignore the favor he owed to the Palace of Darkness. But in Yi Qing Luo's eyes he didn't exist at all. Yi Qing Luo sped towards the direction of the Sacred Maiden Institute. As she sped off, his speed was like lightning. Evil Tyrant's hand caught nothing. Evil Tyrant looked at his empty hand and smiled instead of getting angry. His eyes were full of admiration. Then he quickened his pace and chased after them. One thing followed another. No one noticed. Amidst the wreckage of the ruins, a slender figure climbed out of the mound unsteadily. That figure was in a sorry state and smelled horrible. Vaguely, one could only see that the figure was wearing a white chiffon dress. In that person's hand, there was a corpse that had already been smashed beyond recognition. The man slowly raised his head and looked in the direction of the Saintess yard. Then he casually tossed the corpse in his hand away. Then, step by step, he walked towards the Saintess yard with great difficulty. The corpse that had been abandoned by that person rolled on the ground. Under the mangled flesh, one could barely make out the face, Yen Zhenfei. Outside the Saintess yard, majestic and powerful energy enveloped the surroundings. Chapter 2999. Yi Qing Luo had just rushed over. Sand and pebbles flew in front of him. It carried a strong smell of blood. Qing Luo, why are you here? Several voices came from not far away. Yen Xiao Yi and the rest stood back to back, holding the weapons in their hands. Their bodies were covered with obvious wounds. Yi Qing Luo knew that her current reaction was to give the Palace of Seclusion a clue to look for Di Emotian. She didn't dare to look in the direction of the secret chamber. She could only keenly perceive the Saintess yard, with the obstruction of Yen Xiao Yi and the others. Furthermore, there were countless goo worm traps in Saintess courtyard. The people from the Palace of Darkness were only in the outer courtyard of the Saintess Institute. Where's Master Goe Wu and young Master Emo? Yi Qing Luo's gaze quickly wandered around the surroundings. She had to find Leng Yen first and stop him. However, as soon as her voice fell, a swift and fierce attack came from behind him. Yi Qing Luo reacted, just as he was about to dodge, but his gaze swept past Yen Xiao Yi and the rest. Her body had already reflexively opened up the glowing flame fan. Her 5 fingers moved, stirring up a violent wind blade. Facing the attack coming from behind, she directly pressed forward. It was Evil Tyrant. He had caught up. Evil Tyrant's attack. Yi Qing Luo's current position was totally unable to hide. If she dodged, Xieba's attack must have landed on Yen Xiao Yi and the rest. She was a profound practitioner of the Sky Profound Realm, and she could only barely fight against Xieba with the help of external forces. No matter how sharp Yen Xiao Yi and the rest were, he was also unable to dodge Evil Tyrant's attack. He couldn't let Xieba hurt Yen Xiao Yi and the rest. Yi Qing Luo didn't hide and could only move forward, but she was in a passive position after all. The speed of his counterattack was also slightly slower. Evil Tyrant's attack was blocked by more than half, but there was still a large portion of the remaining power which shocked Yi Qing Luo. Qing Luo, are you all right? Qiao Jin shielded Yen Xiao Yi behind him and asked worriedly as he approached. Just focus on dealing with that bunch of people from the Palace of Seclusion. Don't let them enter the Sacred Maiden Institute again. Yi Qing Luo stopped Qiao Jin's footsteps sharply. The Palace of Seclusion has found help from the Earth boundary. Qiao Jin's pupils shrank. Earth domain? People from the Earth domain dared to sneak into the lower domain? Aren't they afraid that the Historian of Balance will find them? Even now, he couldn't use the power of the Huangfu family. This was to prevent the Historian from finding out and prevent the Huangfu clan from making a fuss. The Palace of Dark Seclusion had blatantly colluded with the people from the Upper Realm. Were they not afraid of punishment? They can't escape. Yi Qing Luo only left this sentence as she pressed on the place where she was shocked by the remnant force, as her figure speedily skimmed upwards. Her dress fluttered in the wind. leaving behind an alluring afterimage. Following the direction that Kitty Lee had pointed, she quickly moved her feet. A moment later, he saw 3 figures entangled together behind the Saintess courtyard. That energy, which seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth, continued to spread its evil aura as they fought. This was trying to destroy the evil energy of the Miao tribe. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as the glower flame fan speedily flew towards that evil qi. Just as it was about to sever that evil qi, evil tyrant's figure swayed as he laughed sinisterly. "Young lass, this seat wants to bring you to the Hell Palace, and that is already going against the deal with the Palace of Seclusion. Now, I absolutely cannot let you destroy the second deal between this seat and the Palace of Seclusion." Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes, and without any hesitation, she turned her hand and attacked once again. Her target was very clear, obviously not evil tyrant. Chapter 3000. Xia Ba squinted his eyes. This lass had detected Lung Yan's motive so quickly, she could even accurately identify the exact location of the evil qi which Lung Yan had released. It seemed, ever since Yi Qing Luo had advanced, her perceptive ability had increased by leaps and bounds. Not only could she differentiate everything around her, furthermore, he was able to see through all of his attacks. One must know that he was a sky-profound 9th grade cultivator, adding on to the evil arts which he had cultivated. Even if it was a sky-profound cultivator and above who fought with him, they might not be able to gain any advantage in his hands. But Yi Qing Luo could. Xia Ba was certain. No matter how Yi Qing Luo advanced, that was just a level up, and that was only a sky-profound lower-level cultivator. But it was just a level up and had upgraded Yi Qing Luo's powerful technique? Unbelievable. It was simply too unbelievable. Xia Ba's eyes were burning with excitement. Cut off the source of the evil qi. As long as she continued, everything would end. Xia Ba didn't stop Yi Qing Luo from cutting off the evil qi which Lung Yan had released. On the contrary, he pretended to be vigilant, as though he was worried that Yi Qing Luo would suddenly make a move as he made a prediction to dodge sideways. This dodge opened up a path for Yi Qing Luo, giving Yi Qing Luo an opportunity to dash towards the direction of the evil qi which was spreading. Yi Qing Luo was still guarding against Xia Ba, in case Xia Ba stopped her from cutting off the source of the evil qi, to stop them from ruining the Miao tribe's plan. However, Evil Tyrant unexpectedly made a preemptive move at the critical moment. This movement seemed to be a prediction error, but Yi Qing Luo felt that something was amiss. For someone like Xia Ba, how could he possibly make such an obvious prediction error? Little Qing Luo. Zhou Mo sensed Yi Qing Luo nearing while they were entangled. He retreated backwards and noticed Yi Qing Luo pouncing towards the spreading evil qi as his face turned pale. Little Qing Luo, you can't cut off that evil qi by force. Otherwise, the evil energy will corrode your body. Zhou Mo shouted anxiously. Yi Qing Luo's footsteps suddenly halted. Following that, her charming eyes swiftly shifted onto Xia Ba. This was Xia Ba's motive. He purposely made a mistake in his movement to lure her into taking the bait and sever the evil energy, after the demonic energy invaded her body, and then use the demonic energy to control her. Damn it! Xia Ba saw that his motive was about to be achieved, but was stopped by that white-robed young man. He was so infuriated that his face flushed red as he stared viciously at that young man who was approaching Yi Qing Luo. If he had known earlier that this white-robed youth would have seen through his intentions, he would not have been able to escape. Earlier on, when Yi Qing Luo wanted to rush forward to cut off the evil qi, he should not have stopped her. Zhou Mo took quick steps to Yi Qing Luo's side as he grabbed one of her arms. With Little Master and Awu around, what are you running over for? They want to turn all the living beings in the Miao tribe into nothingness, and then directly turn into a void space. Yi Qing Luo followed Zhou Mo's force as she retreated a few steps away from that evil qi which was still spreading. Yi Qing Luo's face was filled with anxiety. They are from the Earth Realm. People from the Underworld Palace. They don't want to enter the Saintis Institute. They want to destroy the Saintis Institute once and for all. A cold glint flashed across Zhou Mo's eyes as he glared at Xiaba. These people are despicable. Chapter 3001. Don't be silly. Zhou Mo tightened his grip on her arm and lowered his voice. I've heard of Hell Palace's reputation. If you're corroded by the demonic aura of Hell Palace, no matter how strong your willpower is, you won't be able to resist it. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly and lowered her eyes. Now, Xiaba was waiting for her to be corroded by the evil energy so that he could control her. Initially, Yi Qing Luo was still thinking that there was a possibility that she could rely on her willpower to contend against it. However, Zhou Mo's words had clearly explained everything. The evil aura of the Hell Sect was not something that she could restrain. Could it be? Did she really have no choice but to use her last resort? Using the power of the divine phoenix, profound heart jade, he lured the historian of balance to the lower realm. As long as the historian of balance arrived, Leng Yan and Xiaba's plan had to be stopped, and the palace of Umbra would also be investigated. However, if the power of the divine phoenix, profound heart jade, really attracted the historian of balance from the upper three realms, the secret of her profound heart jade really couldn't be concealed any longer. The lower realm would probably never have peace again. Most importantly, once she suffered a backlash from the profound jade heart, she had no way to personally witness DMO Xian's successful detoxification and safe return. All right, I'll go help Awu first. Don't act recklessly. With this young lord and Awu here, what are you worried about? This young master will help you get rid of these dregs. Zhou Mo was paying attention to the direction of the ghost martial sect and didn't notice Yi Qing Luo's current expression. He consoled her with a few words, patted Yi Qing Luo's shoulder hard, and immediately rushed towards Gui Wu. Due to certain reasons, the fight between Gui Wu and Leng Yan was somewhat restricted. He had to hurry and tell Ghost Marshal about what he had heard from Yi Qing Luo. Little girl, I've taken a fancy to you, and I want you to follow me unharmed. But since you're so disobedient, then don't blame me for not knowing how to show mercy to my little disciple. Xiaba's sinister eyes flickered with a cold light as he watched Zhou Mo leave. His figure speedily dashed towards Yi Qing Luo. Zhou Mo was there just now. He couldn't figure out Zhou Mo's identity. He did not dare to act rashly. Furthermore, Yi Qing Luo and Zhou Mo's exchange earlier had already transmitted too much information. It wasn't just because of the unfathomable strength of this white-clad youth called Zhou Mo. The strongest one was the black-robed young man who was fighting with Leng Yan. In other words, he was the ghost martial grandmaster that they spoke of. Everyone could see that. Gui Wu had not even used his full strength. All he did was stop Leng Yan and evade his attacks. Obviously, he was worried about something. If once the Gui Wu no longer cared, even if he and Leng Yan joined hands, they would still be able to suppress Gui Wu. But the commotion it would cause would be too great. Furthermore, their goal was to destroy the Miao tribe. Causing such a commotion, if those people from the upper realm were to turn a blind eye to it, it would be too fake. He had to end the battle quickly. Evil Tyrant urged Leng Yan through the special connection he had with him. While directly making a vicious move, he pulled Yi Qing Luo towards him. Little lass, I've given you a sweet taste, but you don't want it. Why must you let yourself be riddled with scars? This seat is not someone who has tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Xiaba's fingers turned into a claw. As long as you're still breathing, after I bring you back to the Underworld Palace, this seat will be able to save you. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as the agitation which was suppressed in her heart kept surging. Chapter 3002. Yi Qing Luo's thoughts were all placed on how to stop Ling Yan, how to fight for time for Dmo Xian to cure the gu and protect him. Xia Ba's time and time again harassment and obstructions had already made Yi Qing Luo lose her patience. Her brows were frozen as her vision swept past Zhou Mo and Gue Wu, who were entangled in battle. Then she looked towards the brothers and little companions who were fighting against secluded palace. Her brows sunk slightly. The sky, filled with evil qi, following the continuous battle, started to spread towards the surroundings of the Sacred Maiden Institute. Not too long later, this gust of evil qi would definitely be able to envelop the entire Sacred Maiden Institute. Once it was enveloped by the evil qi, the entire Sacred Maiden Institute would sink into hell. All living beings turned into nothingness, reduced to nothingness. Time was pressing. There was no time for her to make any comprehensive considerations. Now, she could only try her best to prevent herself from suffering from the backlash. Yi Qing Luo's brows sunk as she directly raised the glower flame fan in her hands, sweeping up 100,000 feet wind wave. Her other hand swiftly pressed onto her profound jade heart. Profound qi was activated. Profound jade heart started to burn. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly as the profound qi encircled it even more. The 100,000 feet wind wave was like a raging wave, directly surging towards Xia Ba. Xia Ba's heart was filled with the thought of directly suppressing Yi Qing Luo, bringing her away forcefully. His attack was to stick close to Yi Qing Luo's face, striking at Yi Qing Luo from a close distance. But when Yi Qing Luo's strike landed, no matter how fast Xia Ba's reaction was, he was also swallowed by the 100,000 feet wind wave. That horrifying momentum, as compared to when he had just advanced, was much thicker. Xia Ba was sent flying, crashing heavily onto the rubble of the ruins. The ground exploded into a huge deep pit. This strike could be said to be completely withstood by Xia Ba. He fell into that huge deep pit. His entire body was covered with blood scars. But he wasn't angry. Instead, he started laughing maniacally. That withered body stood up shakily from the deep pit. The evil qi in his entire body kept seeping into his body. He laughed crazily and malevolently. Good, good. After advancing, you can still raise your battle prowess in a short period of time. This is too inconceivable. This seat really wants to dig out your profound heart jade and take a look. I want to see just what quality profound heart jade is that it can actually reach such a realm. Hearing evil tyrant's crazed and excited voice, Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. This kind of lunatic who could not be caught at all. Yi Qing Luo really didn't know how to deal with it. The stronger she is, the more excited Xia Ba was, the more excited he became. The more he studied her, the more he wanted to do research on her. To deal with such a lunatic, unless he could really kill him. Otherwise, he would harass her over and over again. After all, lunatics were not afraid of death. Just as Yi Qing Luo was thinking about how to trap Xia Ba, she was secretly mobilizing the profound qi in her body as it continuously flushed into her profound heart jade. Evil tyrant's laughter suddenly stopped. That terrifying face was tightly scrunched up into a ball. Yi Qing Luo noticed this. He quickly looked in the direction of Leng Yan. As expected, Leng Yan had separated from Zhou Mo and Gue Wu. The three of them faced each other, suspended in midair, whereas Leng Yan's gaze looked toward Xia Ba. Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped. Apparently, this Leng Yan and Xia Ba were carrying out a secret exchange. What plan did they have? Very quickly, Leng Yan and Xia Ba gave their answer, just in this one breath's time. Chapter 3003. Not good. Yi Qing Luo's heart turned cold as she followed closely in the direction of Gue Wu and Zhou Mo. However, she was still a step too slow. Bang! Siab Ba brought along an incomparably sharp and dense evil chi, and directly attacked in the direction of the ghost warrior. The terrifying, profound strength was like a surging wave, rolling and rolling continuously. Evil Tyrant's attack was completely unexpected. Gue Wu and Zhou Mo were intimidated by the demonic aura, causing them to take several steps back. They want to switch their line of sight. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. Lan Yan's destructive power is very strong, and the evil chi he emits is enough to destroy all living things in the Miao tribe, turning this place into nothingness. They want to use Xia Ba to stall the two of you, and then let Lan Yan destroy the Saintis Institute. You are indeed worthy of being my disciple. Xia Ba didn't deny it, and laughed coldly. So what if you know? Can you stop it? Xia Ba let out a cold grin. Without any hesitation, his figure sped forward like a sharp blade. Endless evil energy spread in all directions. On the other hand, Lan Yan found an opportunity. The moment Evil Tyrant rushed over, he quickly rushed in the direction of the Saintis Yard. As he charged forward, the path he took was enveloped by a black aura. The air condensed, and space seemed to be on the verge of shattering. In midair, cracks that resembled spiderwebs appeared. After Yi Qing Luo's reminder, Gue Wu shifted his focus and looked at Lan Yan, who had already entered the Saintis courtyard. After seeing the cracks spreading all around, the expression on his face became gloomy. Space explosion. You guys actually want to use this kind of demonic technique. Gue Wu's voice, which had always been calm, was now brimming with anger. You want to shatter this space? Zhou Mo turned pale with fright. Do you know what will happen if the space explodes? Xia Ba laughed sinisterly. Consequences? What does it have to do with me and the underworld palace? The faces of Gue Wu and Zhou Mo turned extremely ugly. They had already made up their minds to push all the blame onto the Palace of Darkness. That was why he dared to use such evil arts so brazenly. Space exploded. It was a demonic technique that could destroy a confined space. This was also what Evil Tyrant had been talking about. Let the Miao tribe fall into the void? Bang, bang, bang. Under the shroud of evil energy, the Holy Maiden Institute set off an earth-shattering explosion that was enough to deafen the eardrums. The destructive power released by Lan Yan had spread throughout the entire Saintis courtyard. The Saintis Institute, which had already been reduced to ruins because of the war, was now in ruins. Under such a powerful destructive force, Feng Lin's body trembled. It was a complete mess. The speed of destruction caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Wave after wave of horrifying dark force was still surging. Xiao Yi Jinzi, run, run. Yi Qing Luo's pupils dilated as she cried out sharply, Qian, Shiju, quick! Protect them and evacuate first. For a time, there was chaos outside the Saintis courtyard. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were protected by Shiju and Qian. And Yi Qing Luo's reminder was timely. After the few of them retreated, they were not injured by the powerful destructive force. But the secluded Darkness Palace disciples were still searching for DMO Xian's whereabouts in the Holy Maiden courtyard. He didn't even have the time to scream. They were directly swallowed by this powerful and boundless energy. Those lives, not even a drop of blood was spilled. They were completely swallowed and turned into nothingness. Chapter 3004. They wanted to escape, but under this kind of power, they couldn't move an inch. Boom, boom, boom. Bam, bam, bam. The deafening sound continued to explode. The entire Sacred Maiden Institute space was filled with black cracks as the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The thick and boundless chi waves were still spreading out. The ghost martial artist, who was still fighting with Xia Ba, was shaken out of the battle range by the powerful chi. His cold eyes looked at the Saintis Institute. He frowned as he spoke in a low voice. Sacred Maiden Institute. Can't be saved. Zhou Emo elbowed Gui Wu hard as he shot a glance towards Yi Qing Luo's direction, indicating for him to shut up. However, Gui Wu didn't say a word. That didn't mean that Xieba, who had victory in his hands, wouldn't ridicule them. Ha ha ha. That's right. Lan Yan has already marked the area where the space will explode. This sacred maiden institute, everything will disappear. He laughed sinisterly as his eyes were filled with madness. The next one is the Miao tribe's turn. Do you think that you can stop it? And at this moment, Lan Yan was very cooperative as he exploded with an increasingly intense, destructive power. Everyone felt a violent tremor beneath their feet. Sacred Maiden Institute started to collapse downwards. The majestic, destructive power was like a tornado of magnitude 10 or more, violently devouring everything. Xian. This scene made Yi Qing Luo's pupils constricted abruptly. Her eyes turned red as she almost lost all her rationality. Her feet moved as she immediately dashed towards the direction of Sacred Maiden Institute. Qing Luo! Little Qing Luo! Gui Wu and Zhou Emo cried out in shock. One by one, they wanted to go up and stop Yi Qing Luo. But after Sacred Maiden Institute collapsed and Xiaba's words, Yi Qing Luo had already lost all ability to think. Space exploded. Even DMO Xian, who was in Sacred Maiden Institute's secret room, would also be engulfed by this force. How could she let her Xian be engulfed by the space explosion? You ants also want to stop me. Lan Yan sensed Yi Qing Luo's approaching figure as he sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. His hand suddenly moved as his palm flipped. Immediately, a burst of black qi exploded from his palm, shooting straight towards Yi Qing Luo's back. The raging energy was like a ferocious wild beast as it struck Yi Qing Luo's back without any hesitation. Oh! Yi Qing Luo gave a muffled groan as her face turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood. However, this did not stop her from moving forward. The red blur was still rushing toward the Saintis Institute at the fastest speed. The entire space of the Saintis courtyard was filled with layers of evil energy. It was like a sharp blade cutting through everything around it, whereas Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she didn't notice anything as she kept on rushing towards the Sacred Maiden courtyard. Endless evil energy enveloped everything. The people outside could not see what was happening in the Saintis yard at all. Yo, no wonder that old fogey Xia Ba has taken a fancy to you. You're indeed a rare talent to be able to withstand my palm strike. Lan Yan's tone was filled with surprise as his pair of evil cold eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo's figure. He licked his lips and laughed sinisterly. What a pity you will also be destroyed along with this broken place. Yi Qing Luo's breathing tightened. Her chest felt stuffy, and there seemed to be a fishy sweetness in her throat as it kept on surging. She panted lightly as her eyes were filled with determination. The belief of seeing DMO Xian and taking him away made her not fall. Chapter 3005. Gui Wu's expression turned solemn as he tightly knitted his brows. Zhou Emo gritted his teeth. These people are from the Earth domain. What they were doing now was completely destroying the peace in the lower realm. Even if we make a move and the higher-ups blame us, we're doing this for the sake of balance in the lower realm. Gui Wu's face remained solemn, not saying a word. Zhou Emo simply shook off Gui Wu's hand. Forget it. You're afraid of being investigated by the higher-ups, but I'm not. With that, he flicked his sleeves and was about to rush to the Saintis courtyard. Before he could move, his shoulder was pressed down by Gui Wu's hand. It's not that I don't want to make a move. It's that there's no need for us to make a move now. Gui Wu stared in the direction of the Holy Maiden Institute as he spoke indifferently. What do you mean? Turning his head, Zhou Emo slapped away Gui Wu's hand. This slap was filled with anger, and it was also very powerful. Gui Wu's hands had turned red from all the clapping. However, Gui Wu did not care about it. Retracting his hand, a profound look appeared on his face. "This is that girl's tribulation. We can't stop it. F***CK. Zoemo cursed. I don't have the time to listen to your mysterious talk. If it was someone else, Lan Yan's move just now would have crippled that girl, even if it didn't kill her." Gui Wu narrowed his deep and unfathomable eyes. As for that last, she managed to hold on. Sister was hurt by that monster." All of a sudden, Kitty Lee rushed forward and grabbed onto Gui Wu's arm. "What do you guys think happened to Big Sister?" The Saintess Yard was shrouded in a large evil aura. When Yen Xiao Yi and the rest looked over, it was a black and oppressive evil aura. Among those present, only Gui Wu and Zhou Mo could see what was happening in the Saintess Institute. Zhou Mo hugged Kitty Lee, glanced at Gui Wu, and lowered his voice. "Ah Wu said nothing will happen, so little Qing Luo will definitely be fine." Kitty Lee's eyes were red and her cheeks were puffed up. "The two of you, why didn't you stop them? They killed so many people. The two of you took action to maintain peace and justice. I'm not sure if anything will happen to Qing Luo." Gui Wu did not have any intention of comforting her. His voice was extremely cold as he continued. "There's a mysterious power protecting her on her body. However, how long it can protect her will depend on her own luck." Kitty Lee was so angry that she clenched her claws tightly. "In the end, you just don't want to make a move. You're afraid of getting into trouble. Little wild cat." Zhou Mo's brows creased as he called out to Kitty Lee in a low voice, as his arms hugged her even tighter. "All of us are very worried about little Qing Luo. If he's really afraid of getting into trouble, he wouldn't be standing here." Kitty Lee turned her head angrily and struggled. "You're not going to save him. Kitty could go by herself. Even if I die, I want to die with Big Sister." Just as they were messing around, Gui Wu suddenly said in a deep voice, "The space-shattering demonic technique has begun." Kitty Lee was stunned. Their faces immediately turned pale, and they all stared at the Saintess Yard, which was surrounded by evil qi. The sky was so dark that they couldn't see anything. Lan Yan's destructive power and the might of the space-shattering demonic technique had exceeded Yi Qing Luo's imagination. Earlier Lan Yan's palm strike. Although she had swiftly circulated the profound energy in her body to conjure an array barrier to block that strike. But after all, she had withstood a third of the power. This third of the power made it hard for her to breathe. If it wasn't for the fact that she had advanced earlier and her own internal injury was almost healed, she was afraid that she would have become a corpse by now. She took a deep breath as she raised her eyes and looked in front. She was about to reach the Saintess Pavilion. Chapter 3006. But just at this moment, bam! A deafening explosion of energy was heard from behind. Endless evil qi covered the sky, violently and wantonly surged over. The evil qi filled the sky, tearing those black cracks in the air. Yi Qing Luo only felt a violent impact on her back. Her body was sent flying by the demonic aura and she landed heavily on the ground. That evil qi, terrifying and overbearing. It was like a raging storm, swallowing everything in its path. The cracks in the space bit by bit tore. The surrounding air was constantly being squeezed, obliterated. Yi Qing Luo struggled, trying to climb up from the ground. However, that evil aura was like Mount Tai pressing down on her, making it hard for her to breathe. Not only that, under the impact of this evil qi, the space was torn. Yi Qing Luo could feel her internal organs in her body were stirring, so painful as if in the next moment she would be swallowed by this evil qi, turning into ashes. This kind of pain was not only physical pain. Even her soul seemed to be sucked away by this evil qi. Yi Qing Luo couldn't tell what kind of feeling this was. Like there were numerous thin needles, densely packed, each sharp and cold, piercing her body. Pain. Heart-wrenching pain. continued to spread in her body. That kind of soul-stripping, that kind of pain, as if her body was about to be minced, about to be incinerated, made her consciousness a little dazed. Sigh. Suddenly, in the haze, she vaguely heard a helpless sigh. That voice seemed to be right beside her ear, or as if it came from her heart. Who was it? Who was sighing? Yi Qing Luo's consciousness regained some clarity. Valuing relationships and loyalty is a good thing, but for this relationship, to lose your life, is it really worth it? That voice rang softly beside her ear again. The voice was gentle, extremely pleasing to the ear. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered absent-mindedly. Her slender fingers slightly had the strength to move. Bit by bit, she curled her fingers tightly. Worth it. Worth it. Worth it. Because it was Xian, so it was worth it. You're so silly. That gentle voice gave another long sigh. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she struggled to open her eyes, trying to see clearly who was talking to her. However, as soon as he opened his eyes, immediately a burning sensation surged up from his wrist. Yi Qing Luo moaned painfully, and this feeling of the surging flames. Her consciousness also became much clearer. The hazy scene in front of him gradually became clearer. Apart from the surging evil aura, there was nothing else in the surroundings. It was as if the voice just now was just a figment of her imagination. Xiao! The sound of evil energy rushing about destroyed everything in the Holy Maiden courtyard. Wherever the evil aura went, it was reduced to nothingness. She held her breath. She could clearly feel that the surging evil aura was constantly trying to devour her. The burning sensation on his wrist continued. The heat was rising bit by bit. She frowned in pain, but her consciousness became clearer. However, her body was still being squeezed by the evil aura, and she was completely unable to move. She bit her lower lip, trying her best to restrain herself from being swallowed by the evil aura. As she vigilantly gathered her mental energy, she sized up the surroundings. Suddenly, her pupils contracted slightly as it fixed on a certain direction. The surging evil aura kept moving towards that direction. Her heart suddenly trembled fiercely. Xian. Chapter 3007. That direction was the direction of Saint Maiden Pavilion. Xian was still in the secret room of Saint Maiden Pavilion. In front of her eyes, a tall figure seemed to appear. That purple-robed man with peerless elegance was smiling at her. Her eyelashes fluttered. Xian! When she saw this figure, her body seemed to be filled with energy. Her legs moved with difficulty as she pounced towards the direction of that figure. But at the next moment, endless surging evil, qi madly, surged towards that figure. Yi Qing Luo's hands missed. She fell heavily onto the ground. She looked helplessly at the surging evil qi in front of her, completely swallowing that peerless elegance figure. Xian! 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 Yi Qing Luo's heart felt a dull pain. She tried her best to call out Dmo Xian's name, but her throat seemed to be blocked by something, making her unable to make a single sound. Tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Drop by drop fell onto her wrist. The scorching heat once again engulfed her. Still struggling on your deathbed. Lan Yan smiled sinisterly, his face filled with complacency. Bit by bit, he shifted his gaze to the opposite on that row of people. On seeing those people, each and every one of them, their eyes were filled with hatred, as though they couldn't wait to cut him into 1,000 pieces. His smile became even more joyous. He loved this kind of gaze, loved this kind of feeling that they hated him, but couldn't do anything to him. This was the path of the strong which he pursued. No one dared to go against all his actions. So what if they hated him? What could they do to him? No living being can escape from this kind of evil art. You'd better give up. Lan Yan laughed sinisterly. not concealing his own complacency. This seat's disciple is still inside. You should at least spare her life. Although Xiaoba's words had the intention to blame Ling Yan, but that tone was filled with pride. They, the people from Hell Palace, would absolutely not lose, unless they were unwilling. Otherwise, there was no mission which could not be completed. What's the use of having that kind of disciple who doesn't know how to listen? Lan Yan gave a snort, as he didn't have any good impression towards Yi Qing Luo. Xiaba laughed cruelly. His gaze swept coldly towards Gui Wu and Zhou Mo, who had no intention of taking action. Since the two of you don't plan on interfering in this matter, the two of you should pretend that you don't know anything about today's matter. The Underworld Palace's target is only the two of them inside. His withered hand pointed to the Saintess Yard, which had been swallowed by the evil aura. Kitty Lee, who was in Zhou Mo's arms, couldn't hold it in any longer and roared, "You don't know? You dare to hurt my sister like this, and you want us to pretend that we don't know anything? Even if Kitty fights to the death, I'll bury all of you with me." "Kitty!" Zhou Mo hugged Kitty Lee tightly, his long arms pulling her into his embrace. Kitty Lee's cute little face was now covered in tears. Zhou Mo felt a dull pain in his heart. He tightened his grip. "If Qing Luo dies, I will definitely not live on alone." Yan Xiao clenched the black sickle blade in her hand tightly, her eyes filled with ruthless coldness. Qiao Jin's hand, which was wrapped around Yan Xiao Yi's slender waist, tightened. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but looking at the Saintess Yard, which was covered with evil aura, eventually he shut his mouth. Apparently, he had tacitly agreed to Yan Xiao Yi's words. "Ha ha ha. A bunch of ants. Also want to shine with the sun and moon?" Lan Yan swept a disdainful glance at those people. In his eyes, Chapter 3008. "And what you said makes sense." Suddenly, a low and deep voice slowly sounded. Everyone's line of sight turned towards the source of the voice. The one who spoke was the silent Gui Wu, who had been the target of everyone's complaints. Yan Xiaoyi's face immediately darkened. "Master Gui Wu, we call you master because of your identity, and we respect you. However, your actions today are not worthy of our respect for you." Qiao Jin pinched her wrist, indicating for her to stop speaking. Yan Xiaoyi was already angry, her eyes red as she stared at Gui Wu. Master Gui Wu is afraid of getting into trouble and is not willing to interfere in this matter. We have no complaints. After all, we are not on the same side. So, since Master Gui Wu only wants to watch from the side, then there is no need to help them and ridicule us. Yan Xiaoyi's words caused the scene to become extremely awkward, but no one spoke up to stop Yan Xiaoyi. Obviously, the others were also full of complaints towards Gui Wu's actions. But just as Zhou Mo was racking his brains, trying to ease the atmosphere, the main character who was being criticized simply did not care about Yan Xiaoyi's words. Instead, he stared at Xiaba's direction and said word by word, "You guys are very self-aware. You two ants want to shine as brightly as the sun and moon?" Instantly, the few angry people blinked their eyes, unable to react to the meaning of Gui Wu's words. The smiles on Xiaba's and Lang Yan's faces also stiffened. Lang Yan's arrogant face instantly darkened as he sneered. "Ants? A little rat that doesn't even dare to reveal his identity. I did not teach you a lesson, and you really think you're something." After saying that, his entire body surged with flames, and he was about to attack Gui Wu. But Gui Wu's expression did not change. In the depths of his cold eyes, there was a trace of coldness. Coming, Gui Wu lightly spat out 2 words. Lang Yan frowned, thinking that Gui Wu was deliberately mystifying things. His figure was as fast as lightning, like an arrow released from a bow. The evil aura shrouded Gui Wu's direction. Following his actions, a powerful destructive power surged forth. Just as the evil aura was about to reach Gui Wu, suddenly, a burst of profound force colliding was heard. That thick and vast Xian qi exploded in midair. The dark force rippled, and the surrounding spiritual qi began to ripple. Lan Yen was forced to take a few steps back by the dark force and stopped his attack. This power! No, it can't be! Lan Yen cried out in disbelief. He quickly looked in the direction of the Saintess Yard. He saw, standing on top of the Holy Maiden courtyard, which was filled with evil energy, the girl who looked like she would die in the next second spread her arms, her red dress fluttering in the wind. Then an extremely domineering aura erupted from the girl's body. That power attracted all the spiritual energy in the surroundings, and it started to gather towards her. Ground, air, space, it began to shake violently. Xiaoba's pupils contracted upon seeing this. His cold eyes were filled with astonishment. How is this possible? How is it possible to escape from the devouring of the spatial explosion? The evil technique of the spatial explosion would never fail. All the creatures in the Saintess Yard should have been turned into nothingness. Chapter 3009. No, not only alive. Xiaoba's breathing was suffocating. She advanced. Didn't she just advance? In such a short period of time, she can advance again. Yes, she advanced to the profound grade again. Yi Qing Luo's profound grade was constantly rising. Moreover, it was a kind of explosive rise. The coquettish red glow shrouded the young lady's slender body, blending in with that fiery red robe, like a blooming rose in flames, blooming till the end. Sky profound, 4th grade. Sky profound, 5th grade. Sky profound, 6th grade, along with the advancement of profound grade. The coquettish red glow around Yi Qing Luo also sped up, spinning faster and faster, spinning faster and faster. Finally, the spinning red glow suddenly surged towards Yi Qing Luo's body. Endless red glow enveloped Yi Qing Luo. Just at this moment, in the ruins, the ground surged. Faintly, a sharp, childlike voice suddenly rang. Chi sensed Master. Master is nearby, it's all right. With Master around, everything will be fine. That voice was intermittent, as though it was very far away, but also seemed very close. The others couldn't hear it clearly. At this moment, the young lady who was suspended in midair, as though she was isolated from the world, suddenly opened her eyes. Her gaze swiftly looked towards the direction of the voice, looking over. Boom! Only to hear a roar. Violent, shocking, profound energy exploded on Yi Qing Luo's body. Her breathing gradually stabilized. The coquettish red glow calmly lingered around Yi Qing Luo's body. Sky profound, 8th grade. Yi Qing Luo's profound grade finally stopped at the realm of sky profound, 8th grade. Xiaoba was shocked by this surge of energy as he retreated several steps. The gaze which he looked at Yi Qing Luo was no longer the kind of excitement and ecstasy, but was filled with disbelief and fear. Just a little bit more. Yi Qing Luo was just a little bit away from advancing to sky profound, 9th grade, if it wasn't for the voice earlier interrupting Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo was very likely to continue advancing. One must know. When he first met Yi Qing Luo was just a low-leveled cultivator who had just stepped into Sky Profound Realm. Later on, when she advanced, she was only at Sky Profound 2nd grade. But now, in a short period of time, if it wasn't for the voices coming from the Sacred Maiden Institute, which disrupted Yi Qing Luo's thoughts, Yi Qing Luo's profound grade would surpass his. Xiaoba, who had witnessed the scene with his own eyes, could not believe his eyes. He couldn't believe that a profound practitioner could raise his cultivation by so much in such a short period of time. Moreover, he didn't seem to be uncomfortable at all. Logically speaking, even if he relied on evil arts or other pills to quickly raise his profound rank. However, With his body's condition, there was no way he could withstand the sudden increase in profound strength. If it was more than what his body could bear, it was very likely that he would suffer a backlash. If it was light, his profound heart jade would be destroyed and he would lose all of his profound strength. In the worst case, his internal organs would rupture and he would die. However, Yi Qing Luo had consecutively risen several grades. Moreover, it was the sky profound grade, this extremely difficult to advance profound grade. Yi Qing Luo's body had not only withstood sky profound 8th grade profound energy. Moreover, it was obvious that he had fused this boundless and powerful energy with his own body. What kind of pervert was she? Was this little girl really only 15 years old? Xiaba and Leng Yan were not the only ones. Everyone on the scene was shocked. Chapter 30:10. Everyone's gazes shifted towards Gui Wu in unison. Could it be? Right from the start, Gui Wu had no intention to make a move. Not because he was afraid of getting into trouble, but because he had long known that Yi Qing Luo would advance at this moment. So he said that there was no need for him to make a move. Facing their gazes, Gui Wu's expression didn't change and his gaze didn't shift at all. Only using a deep and serene gaze, he stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. Yi Qing Luo could feel the surging profound energy in her body. Her entire body, limbs and bones were filled with boundless energy. Enveloped by the red glow, it made her eyes look enchanting. She looked towards the direction where the sound came from. Without any hesitation, she flew over. That was Chi-Chi's voice. She could vaguely sense Chi-Chi's presence. Chi-Chi was fine. Then, Yi and Xian would definitely be fine. She would not let the so-called space explosion destroy the sacred maiden compound. She would not let anyone hurt Xian. Yi Qing Luo's figure was extremely swift. Lan Yan sensed Yi Qing Luo's intention, and his expression changed instantly as he shouted Xiaba's name and flew towards Yi Qing Luo's direction, just as he was flying upwards. Lan Yan swiftly released a thick and overbearing evil qi to mend the crack which was broken by Yi Qing Luo earlier. But just as his evil qi was about to fill up that crack, what met him was a ray of red glow. Lan Yan only managed to see a remnant shadow brushing past. What entered his eyes was a red dress fluttering in the wind and an incoming leg. Bam! That leg landed directly on Lan Yan's face. Lan Yan cried out miserably as his body flew backwards. He covered his face with both hands. Blood gushed out wildly as it seeped out from his fingers. This leg, Yi Qing Luo, totally didn't show any mercy, as it brought along a thick and terrifying energy as it kicked downwards. If it wasn't for Lan Yan's swift reaction, after being kicked, Zhang Wuji's expression changed. He swiftly mobilized his profound energy to block Yi Qing Luo's energy. Otherwise, this kick would absolutely explode Lan Yan's head. Xiaba's figure quickly appeared in front of Lan Yan. A pair of sinister cold eyes stared intently at Yi Qing Luo. Scram! Icy cold words spat out from Yi Qing Luo's lips. After Yi Qing Luo finished her words, she turned around and headed towards that gap once again. But Yi Qing Luo's figure flashed past. That red light, in the midst of the evil aura that filled the sky. It was as if he had opened up a straight path. It also tore a long hole in the space that Lan Yan had created with great difficulty. As a result, the space explosion demonic technique was forced to stop. Xiaba's eyes widened. His expression congealed and his body was like a missile, chasing after Yi Qing Luo's figure. "Wanna leave?" He waved his palms out, and the evil aura seemed to be able to deal with the evil aura in the sky with ease. Yi Qing Luo frowned as her expression sunk slightly and her feet moved. Just as Evil Tyrant was about to attack, the ghastly flame fan flipped. In the midst of this evil aura, it was like a flowing flame, shining with a bewitching light. Boom, boom, boom. Two bursts of profound energy collided. Instantly the hole in the space which had been shaken till it tore even more. Xiaba frowned. Having his attack blocked by Yi Qing Luo once again, he felt that there was no light on his face and his heart was burning with rage. Just sky profound 8th grade. He was a sky profound 9th grade cultivator. Chapter 30:11. Especially when Yi Qing Luo had just advanced 8th grade and it was continuous advancement. Even if her body could take this kind of burden. But regarding the control of profound energy, Yi Qing Luo was definitely not his match. He didn't believe it. He was the king of Hell Palace. How could he lose to a 15-year-old young lady? The sinister coldness in Xiaba's eyes grew even more, and he didn't suppress his energy as he clenched his fists and stomped his feet. Immediately, a majestic and thick profound energy surged out from Xiaba's body. The entire space immediately sank into a violent tremor. "Little lass, I'll let you see the power of Hell Palace." Xiaba laughed sinisterly as his tone was filled with killing intent. Following that, Xiaba's speed was obviously not on the same level as before. Moreover, the power he used was shockingly terrifying. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as her eyes were filled with impatience. She didn't have any extra thoughts to waste on Xiaba. She rushed into the secret room to check on Ah Xian's situation. But apparently, Xiaba didn't intend to let her off so easily. The terrifying profound energy was accompanied by a tyrannical, murderous intent. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she turned around, and her footwork was extremely strange. It was just an afterimage. Xiaba's attack brushed past her. Yi Qing Luo's feet moved again as she unexpectedly shifted to Xiaba's back. Her eyes were slightly cold as the glower flame fan in her hands was ignited with a ball of raging flame as it shot toward Xiaba's back, aiming at the position of his heart as it fell down. From the first time she had advanced, Yi Qing Luo could obviously feel that her reaction and sensing ability had increased tremendously. Just using her eyes, she could see through Xiaba's attack. Now, this surge of energy in her body made her profound grade surge continuously. Her speed, attack power, and explosive power had all increased. Facing Xiaba, she could do it with ease. But Yi Qing Luo's reaction was fast and unexpected. As the madman from hell, Xiaba's reaction wasn't bad at all. Just when Yi Qing Luo made her first move to move behind him, Xiaba had already reacted. Just as Yi Qing Luo's attack was about to land, Xiaba swiftly turned around and locked Yi Qing Luo's wrist. Hiss! The red glow on Yi Qing Luo's arm instantly turned into a sharp blade, unrestrainedly piercing through Xiaba's hand. Xiaba sucked in a breath of cold air as he felt the pain. But he didn't let go of Yi Qing Luo's wrist because of this piercing pain. On the contrary, his 5 fingers interlocked tightly as he pulled Yi Qing Luo towards him. "Trying to play mind games with me?" Xiaba sneered coldly, his eyes flashing with a bloodthirsty ruthlessness. He tightened his grip. He totally didn't care that his palm had been slashed by the sharp blade that Yi Qing Luo had released, causing his hand to be filled with blood. His hand, which contained evil qi, kept tightening. It was as if he was going to break her wrist. Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale. Xiaba was tugging at the wrist that held the azure dew bracelet. The place where his 5 fingers were pinching was also on the veined patterns of the azure dew bracelet. Yi Qing Luo only felt that the raging energy within her body seemed to be suppressed by something, blocking her limbs and bones, giving her a feeling that she was unable to recover. She struggled. Xiaba tightened his grip. The energy in her limbs and bones seemed as if it was going to burst her meridians. Yi Qing Luo's face turned paler by several shades as a chilly glint surfaced in her eyes. The gathered profound energy swiftly flushed onto her right arm. Chapter 30:12. This burn had obviously increased the heat. The burning feeling was getting more and more obvious. Xiaoba's expression turned extremely gloomy. The evil air which lingered around his face started to flow rapidly, especially that wound on his face, as well as the surging birthmark, was so sinister that it made one's scalp go numb. But even if it was being burned and cut by this scorching, profound energy, Xiaoba still didn't loosen his grip on her wrist. The features on his face turned increasingly sinister as it was extremely distorted. The burning got more and more intense. Xiaoba's hand increased the strength. Yi Qingluo was being pressured by the increasing strength as the profound energy in her body kept on surging and expanding, trying to find an outlet to vent it out. What was Xiaoba trying to do? Wasn't he worried that his hand would be crippled by the profound energy? Wasn't he afraid if he continued to be restrained? Would he also suffer from the backlash of this profound energy? Just as Yi Qingluo was guessing Xiaoba's motive, she heard Yan Xiao, Yi, and the others' cries of alarm. Qingluo! Be careful behind you! Yi Qingluo's eyes flashed. Almost subconsciously, her footsteps moved, but the hand which was locked on her wrist was holding her down firmly. Not only that, Xiaoba even grabbed her wrist, pulling her towards his direction. Yi Qingluo's footwork, which she was about to display, was interrupted, and she staggered forward. Bam! A palm landed squarely on her back. Yi Qingluo felt an intense pain, as though her four limbs were about to be torn apart. Her internal organs were twisting together in pain. She heard Yan Xiao, Yi, and the others' anxious cries, but her consciousness was a little blurry. She took a deep breath and bit her lower lip. The sweet taste of blood started to spread in her mouth. The stinging pain also caused her eyes to gradually clear up a little. She clearly saw, behind her, that unrecognizable, extremely comical and terrifying face, as well as that pair of vicious, murderous eyes. It was Lan Yan. Xiaoba had been restraining her. It was to create a chance for Lan Yan to kill her. Yi Qingluo's breathing froze. The excruciating pain in his 5 viscera and 6 bowels attacked him again. She frowned in pain. Lan Yan's cold voice resounded in her ears. What? You can't bear to part with it, just like that? This girl is too abnormal. I don't have the confidence to control her. Xiaoba lowered his head as he stared at his hand, which was filled with blood because he had grabbed hold of Yi Qingluo. This lass's regenerative ability is just too strong. If I don't kill her, leaving her alive would be trouble. Killing intent surged in Lan Yan's eyes. Then, I'll kill her. Don't feel bad. He was asking a question. But while he was speaking, he had already raised his palm once again, pressing it down towards the top of Yi Qingluo's skull. This palm strike was ferocious and carried boundless killing intent. His face was disfigured by a little girl from the lower realm. This made Lan Yan, who had always claimed to be the king with the strongest destructive power, lose all face. The only way to appease him was, kill Yi Qingluo. Use Yi Qingluo's blood to eliminate his anger. Yi Qingluo could obviously feel that evil aura which was filled with killing intent, charging towards her with irresistible force. Little by little, her slightly misty and charming eyes became cold and fierce. At this moment, his extremely pale face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Chapter 30:13. Yi Qingluo's eyes suddenly turned cold. Xiaoba's right hand, which was held tightly by Xiaoba, suddenly clenched into a fist. The demonic and crazy red light cut through the air with a whoosh and instantly wrapped around her right arm. The scorching heat burned again. Originally, they thought that Yi Qingluo, who had suffered from Lan Yan's palm, absolutely would not have any energy left to counterattack. Towards Yi Qingluo, Xiaoba wasn't as vigilant as before. As the burning sensation surged, Li Qianlan's eyes widened. He instinctively loosened his grip. When he came back to his senses, he wanted to tighten his grip again. However, it was also at this moment that he let go. This gave the azure dew bracelet a chance to vent. Swish, 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 bang. Explosions could be heard in the air. The profound energy that had been suppressed in his body due to Siaba's tight grip on the azure, dew bracelets, vein patterns. At this moment, money was flowing out like it was free. It poured out in torrents. Endless demonic red light washed away the evil aura that enveloped the Holy Maiden Institute. Ah! Siaba didn't even have time to react before he felt a dull pain in his chest. His entire body was pushed back a dozen steps by the crazily surging power. In the end, it smashed heavily into the ruins. However, this was not the end. Siaba clutched his chest and vomited blood. His face was filled with shock as he stared in Yi Qing Luo's direction. He raised his head. A fist filled with killing intent smashed down. Ah! Siaba let out a miserable shriek. The surrounding ruins collapsed. His dark force surged, and his strength surged like a whirlwind. With Yi Qing Luo's feet as the epicenter, the surroundings exploded into a huge, deep pit. Siaba lay limply in the huge pit, his mouth full of blood. His breathing was so weak that it seemed like it would stop at any moment. Yi Qing Luo's sudden outburst made Lang Yan's pupils constrict. While Yi Qing Luo was dealing with Siaba, he quickly retreated. However, in the next instant, the girl standing in the deep pit raised the corner of her lips into a bloodthirsty and treacherous smile. "Don't be anxious now, it's your turn." As the bewitching and ruthless voice came to an end, Lang Yan's heart skipped a beat. He opened his eyes wide vigilantly, sensing Yi Qing Luo's direction. However, in the next moment, the young girl was already like an arrow that had left the bow, attacking him head-on. Just as Lang Yan was about to dodge, the young girl's figure immediately disappeared before his eyes. Instead, it was replaced by a majestic, spiraling, gigantic fire dragon. The fire dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws, as if it wanted to swallow him whole. Insignificant skill. Lang Yan's face darkened. He coldly snorted and quickly responded. However, his cold snort didn't even have time to finish. The fire dragon broke through his counterattack and bit down on his face. Bang! Lang Yan's body was smashed into the ground by the force of the fire dragon. Lang Yan groaned in pain, feeling like he was being burned by a raging fire. At the same time, the flying fire dragon suddenly dissipated. The slender and petite figure slowly appeared. Her face was as cold as ice, and her eyes were devoid of any emotion. She stared fixedly at Lang Yan and Siaba, who were lying in two deep pits, howling in pain but unable to resist. "Qing Luo, you're too incredible. Sister, you're the person that Kitty Kitty admires the most. Qing Luo." Yen Xiao Yi and the others were so shocked by this scene that they couldn't close their mouths. On seeing those two mysterious and powerful people who had lost their battle power, they immediately went forward with a face full of excitement and agitation. But at the next moment, Chapter 3014, Qing Luo. The few of them's joyous expression froze on their faces. The few of them immediately rushed forward, trying to catch Yi Qing Luo. But a figure with an even faster speed overtook them. Yen Xiaoyi's footsteps halted as she frowned at that person's back. "Young sect master Gu?" This person was Gu Jingyu, who had regained his energy and rushed over in a hurry. Gu Jingyu had just rushed over when he saw Yi Qing Luo's falling figure. His mind went blank immediately. His body had instinctively rushed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. But Gu Jingyu had yet to get near. Suddenly, a cold breeze brushed past his face. The air, which was filled with blood, was inexplicably tainted with a layer of sandalwood scent. Following that, he saw a tall figure bringing that falling young lady into his arms. The two of them slowly landed on the ground. Gu Jingyu's footsteps instantly froze on the spot. His body also stiffened. He looked at the scene in front of him in a daze, as his eyes kept on contracting and expanding. And behind him, the few of them who were chasing up when they saw that person clearly All of their faces revealed an ecstatic expression. Overlord! Overlord! You're back! That tall figure, dressed in a flowing purple robe, was a noble and elegant man, just standing there. He gave off a chilling, overbearing aura, powerful to the extreme. Other than DMO Xian, who else could it be? Hiwa, Nirvana Realm's legend. The Overlord who made everyone tremble in fear. He was finally back. Moreover, look at the Overlord's action of catching Qing Luo. The Overlord's gaze towards Qing Luo. That was obvious. Obviously, the Gu had been cured successfully. The few of them were so agitated that their eyes were brimming with tears. The Overlord had rushed over in time. Qing Luo would absolutely be fine. Ah, Qing Luo. Beside him, Gu Jingyu opened his mouth hoarsely as he stared unwillingly at the young lady in the man's arms, as he clenched his fists tightly. If he was a little faster. The one who was hugging Yi Qing Luo in his arms was him. DMO Xian heard his voice as he frowned slightly. He raised his eyes, as his frosty peach blossom eyes, as he shot a cold glance at Gu Jingyu. That gaze was gloomy and cold. It was just a glance. Gu Jingyu's face instantly turned pale. He was so frightened that he took a few steps back. Xian. Suddenly, the voice of the person in his arms sounded like a gossamer. DMO Xian swiftly lowered his eyes and looked at the young lady in his arms. The girl's long eyelashes trembled slightly. In the haze, she seemed to see a familiar face. The familiar scent of sandalwood filled his nostrils. The exhaustion in her body unknowingly loosened. She wanted to laugh. She smiled at him, who she had been thinking about day and night. She tried to lift her hand. She wanted to touch the face that she missed so much. However, she didn't even have the strength to lift the corners of her mouth. He couldn't even lift his hand. At the same time, his body and mind relaxed. Her vision darkened, and she fell into a deep sleep. Little Luo! A hoarse voice spilled out from DMO Xian's thin lips. His arms tightened around the girl in his embrace. The girl's delicate body was as light as a feather. His hands were trembling. His heart seemed to be soaked in ice frost. Especially the young lady's pale complexion pierced his eyes. His gloomy peach blossom eyes were surging with gloomy light as it fluctuated violently. Secluded palace. Kill without mercy. The icy cold words were spat out from D. Mo Xian's mouth. Chapter 30:15. How could he possibly? In a corner not far from the Sacred Maiden Institute, the lady who was curled up on the back of the huge magical beast seemed to have lost all her energy as she laid on the magical beast's back. The lady stared in shock at the Sacred Maiden Institute, at that tall figure. Her heart was filled with endless fear. Who? I will protect you. The black-robed man behind her squatted down and took the lady into his arms as he comforted her gently. Don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to you. These two people were Wolf Saint Magic and Fox Saint Magic. They had been hiding in the dark. They were thinking of waiting for the helpers from the Hell Palace to successfully exterminate the Sacred Maiden Institute. Then they would appear and snatch the credit. But they had not expected this at all. Yi Qing Luo was actually so tenacious. She was able to break through her limits time and time again, surpassing herself. And just based on her own strength, she completely oppressed the two experts from the Hell Palace. One must know, when the palace lord mentioned the Hell Palace, his tone was filled with the determination to win. They had heard of the Hell Palace's prestige. But these two people in the Hell Palace, whose abilities even the palace lord thought highly of, were completely oppressed by Yi Qing Luo. Now, DMO Xian had appeared safe and sound. From DMO Xian's tone earlier, they could totally hear it. How deep was DMO Xian's accumulated anger right now? Didn't Fourth Elder Miao said. He was poisoned by the Miao tribe's ancestors' venom, and it's a double venom of centrifugal venom and love venom. Wolf Saint Magic hugged the trembling person as he comforted her gently. Just based on that newly appointed Miaoyi, it's absolutely impossible to cure the venom in DMO Xian's body. There's a possibility that DMO Xian sensed that Yi Qing Luo was in danger and forced himself to come over to save Yi Qing Luo. As though to convince Fox Saint Magic or to convince himself, Wolf Saint Magic nodded his head vigorously. Our DMO Xian is absolutely putting on an act now. His large palm rubbed Fox Saint Magic's head. I'll let the blood sacrifice bring you away. Fox Saint Magic grabbed the magical beast beneath him, which was the blood sacrifice's fur. Then you, what about you? I said before I will protect you. Wolf Saint Magic smiled gently at her, totally different from his usual gloomy temperament. The Fox Saint Law's pupils constricted, and he opened his mouth, wanting to say something urgently. However, the Wolf Saint Law's gaze forced him to swallow his words. Wolf Xingfa leaped and quickly moved to the other side. At the same time, Blood Sacrifice's dinosaur-like giant body flew away. It was extremely agile as it sped off in another direction. You injured the future mistress of our imperial palace. Still want to run? Suddenly, a tender voice resounded from the corner. A slender figure quickly rushed in the direction of the blood sacrifice. Following that, countless young men and women dressed in black and white robes surrounded them from all directions, each of them brimming with a murderous aura. As far as the eye could see, there were at least 1,000 people. The moment this group of people quickly surrounded him, Lang Xingfa's expression changed drastically. He looked in the direction of the Fox Saint technique, and with a move of his feet he was about to give chase. However, he was intercepted by 5 youths, and on the other side, being carried by Shui Si, the Fox Saint technique that was moving swiftly on the Miao tribe's small path, was also stopped by a powerful and vigorous attack. Shui Si was forced to stop. Chapter 3016. Fox Sacred Law's face was as pale as paper. Bit by bit, she shifted her vision towards the group of people who were obstructing her. Black and white-colored long robes. Their ages were all on the younger side. Probably the oldest was not older than 24 or 25. But every single one of them exuded a unique aura which made one's hair stand on end. Although Fox Sacred Law had just revived not too long ago, but looking at these people's dressing and characteristics, in his mind there were 2 words that immediately appeared: Imperial Palace. Yes, Imperial Palace. These people. They were all Imperial Palace's disciples. Only the Emperor Palace could nurture such a terrifying disciple. Only the Imperial Palace could have such a powerful aura. The number 1 palace in the world was definitely not an undeserved reputation. The Overlord said everyone from Abysmal Palace are to be killed without mercy. A cold and elegant voice was heard from the front. Fox Sacred Law immediately raised her eyes and looked over. That was a tall lady dressed in a black and white-colored long robe. The lady's features were exquisite and extremely beautiful. Her expression was icy cold and filled with majesty. But between her brows there was a glint of melancholy which couldn't be dispelled. Her hands were placed behind her back, as she stood in front of the blood sacrifice with an outstanding temperament. Apparently, she was the leader of these Imperial Palace's disciples. And at this moment, the commotion here had already attracted Yan Xiaoyi and the others' attention. The Imperial Palace's disciples coming out in full force was a huge surprise to the few of them. Following the direction of the Imperial Palace's disciples' encirclement, Yan Xiaoyi bore the brunt of it and followed up. She had the guts to collude with the Miao tribe, bringing Abysmal Palace's people to hurt her Qing Luo to such a state when the Overlord wasn't around. Not a single one of those Abysmal Palace's people could escape, especially Fox Sacred Law, who was the initiator, not to mention escaping. When Yan Xiaoyi and the others chased up, their vision fell onto that beautiful lady. Yan Xiao Yi's eyes lit up slightly. Beiyuan, it's you? Tang Beiyuan's beautiful eyes lifted up slightly, and on seeing Yan Xiao Yi and the others, the icy cold expression on her face softened a little. I'm sorry, I was too slow when I went to mobilize the Imperial Palace's disciples, which caused Mistress to suffer such a serious injury. I'm sorry for making all of you worried. It's good that you're here. It's good that you're here. Peach's eyes sparkled as she stared at Tang Beiyuan. She seemed to be able to glean some gossip and secrets about the Imperial Palace from Tang Beiyuan. Yan Xiao rolled her eyes and tugged at Peach. Be more reserved. Dmo Xian's appearance, coupled with the timely arrival of the Imperial Palace's disciples. Everyone's tensed emotions finally relaxed. Dmo Xian seemed to have a kind of magical power. A way for people to see him, they couldn't help but believe that he would be able to protect everyone's magic power. Cough, cough! Xiaba and Lang Yan felt as if their bodies had been disassembled and then put back together again. Just the slightest movement would cause them a heart-wrenching pain. They struggled to stand up from the huge pit. Blood rolled down from their bodies. Their bodies swayed unsteadily. Damn it, that scoundrel actually managed to injure us. Lang Yan clenched his teeth in dissatisfaction. He could not believe that he, who was known as the King of Destruction, was beaten to such a state by a little girl who had not even grown her hair yet. If he returned to the underworld palace like this, how could he have the face to continue living? Bam! Before Lang Yan could finish his cursing, suddenly a whirlwind swept past. It directly landed a palm on his face. This palm did not contain any profound energy, but it was full of strength. Chapter 30:17. Lang Yan glared angrily at the direction where the slap came from. The man in the purple robe looked at him coldly. The pair of terrifying peach blossom eyes were surging with a treacherous storm, full of anger. It was actually forcefully stopped by this majestic coldness. Since you can't speak, you can also give up this mouth. The voice was as cold as ice, as if wrapped in frost. Lang Yan's heart trembled. The hand covering his face also froze. The next moment, Lang Yan only felt a bone-chilling wind blowing against his face, not giving him time to react. His feet left the ground. His feet kept flopping, struggling. An unshakable, profound energy wrapped around his neck. Ugh! The feeling of suffocation made Lang Yan's strength gradually dissipate. His consciousness was fading. The feeling of pain left him no room to resist. Just when Lang Yan thought that he was going to suffocate to death, suddenly the force that was wrapped around his neck rushed into his mouth. Ah! A painful scream sounded. Then there was only the sound of heavy breathing. The onlookers only felt their scalps go numb and silently looked away. It was a miserable scream. It should be Lang Yan's last voice in this world. Lang Yan's mouth was full of blood, a pair of eyes wide open. His tongue was cut to pieces by that profound energy. What kind of powerful force was this? So powerful that, from the beginning to the end, until now, he had not seen the man in purple in front of him make a move. And he was injured to the point that he had no power to fight back. You are Xiaba, who had struggled to climb up. After seeing the man in front of him, his face changed dramatically. His malicious eyes suddenly stared at Fox St. Law and Wolf St. Law, who had been forced by Tang Beiyuan and the others to retreat behind him, his eyes full of haze. The person in the sacred maiden courtyard that made you so afraid is the Overlord. You have been deceiving me from the beginning. Fox St. Law's face was pale. Her eyes quickly swept over Dmo Xian and immediately shook her head in shock. However, no matter how much Fox St. Law denied, her first reaction had already explained everything. His guess was right. From the very beginning, the target of Anyo Palace was the Overlord of the Saintess Yard. The Tenebrous Palace wanted to use the power of the Underworld Palace to kill Lord Dizun. If he succeeded in killing Dizun, The goal of the Palace of Darkness would be achieved. If they failed to kill the Overlord, just like now, the Underworld Palace was the target of His Majesty's vengeance. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness could push everything to the Hell Palace. Evil's domineering face, which was full of scars, twisted into a ball. Dark Palace, I wholeheartedly wanted to return your favor and help you do things, but you actually schemed against me like this. The Underworld Palace will never let you off. He roared in exasperation. It affected the wounds on his body, causing waves of tearing pain. He couldn't stop coughing at all. If he had known from the start, the Palace of Gloomy Shadows wanted to destroy the Saintess Yard and let the entire Meow tribe fall into the void space. They also wanted to kill the Overlord. They would never get involved in this mess. Although the Underworld Palace was a concentration camp for a bunch of lunatics who were not afraid of death. But it didn't mean that they were a bunch of brainless lunatics. They were indeed not afraid of death, but they were afraid of the Overlord. Chapter 3018. He didn't even care about his own injuries as he forced his bleeding body to move towards DMO, Xian's direction. Overlord everything. Everything is a conspiracy by the Palace of Darkness. Hell Palace didn't know about it beforehand. Not knowing if it was because of DMO Xian's intimidating aura, or was it because the wounds on his body had been pulled apart by his movements. Xia Ba's voice kept trembling. Overlord, I know, it's me, I'm willing. I'm willing to lead the Hell Palace to destroy the Palace of Darkness. I hope the Overlord won't vent your anger on the Hell Palace. At this moment, Xia Ba's face was covered with blood, and his extremely ferocious face was full of flattery and flattery. He tried his best to appease DMO Xian so that he wouldn't vent his anger on the Hell Palace. The reason why the Hell Palace was called the Hell of the Earth Realm was that it made people tremble in fear. They would try their best not to provoke them. Not only because they were a bunch of fearless lunatics, but also because they were united, because they were not recognized by the world, because they were all abandoned by the world. Therefore, when they reorganized into a big family, they had no choice but to cooperate. They especially cherished it. For evil arts, for becoming stronger, they could use any means. However, all of this was because they wanted to protect their own little home. So, from the beginning, Xia Ba and Lung Yan didn't seem to respect each other in words, but they never turned their backs on each other. They never had the thought of abandoning each other and running away. Because of this, for the Hell Palace, Xia Ba was willing to lower his noble head. He lowered his head, he showed his weakness. But it didn't ease DMO Xian's expression. DMO Xian's eyes were cold, and there was no emotion on his peerless face. He stared at Xia Ba quietly. His deep and treacherous peach blossom eyes exuded an extremely dangerous aura. He just stood there, not saying a word, but it made people feel that he was like a devil from the hell. The air was frozen, and the atmosphere was cold. Xia Ba's forehead was covered with cold sweat. His heart thumped anxiously, and his hands were about to pierce through his flesh, until Xia Ba's face was pale, and he wanted to continue pleading. The man's cold and emotionless voice slowly rang out, "I will personally destroy the Palace of Darkness." His voice was cold and thin, and his eyes were ice cold. Xia Ba's eyes widened as his heart skipped a beat and his body stiffened on the spot. The Overlord is not going to accept his offer, his overtures? But DMO Xian's indifferent voice sounded again. He only spat out 2 words when he said that. It made Xia Ba's heart rise to his throat. DMO Xian narrowed his shimmering peach blossom eyes, and a dangerous aura started to spread out from his surroundings. His coquettish thin lips curled into a dangerous arc as he said, word by word, "I won't take your lives." The words seemed to have given Xia Ba and Lang Yan great hope. Both of them raised their heads in delight as they looked at DMO Xian in shock. At this moment, they no longer looked as arrogant as before. However, their happiness had not yet spread out in their hearts. DMO Xian's next sentence made the expressions on both of their faces stiffen on their faces. Chapter 3019. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled into a sneer. The person in his arms. He pampered her, doted on her, couldn't bear for her to be hurt or wronged. Two scums from the Hell Palace dared to hurt his little Luo, to such an extent. Still thinking he would let them off? Still thinking of using death to escape punishment? It wasn't just these two scums. The Hell Palace and the Palace of Darkness all had to pay the price for what they had done today. Dmo Xian's lips curled up even more. His almond-shaped eyes were glistening and surging violently. Boom, boom, boom. Dmo Xian unleashed his profound energy from his entire body, shocking the surrounding air, as it kept on exploding with explosive sounds. Xiaba's body was still swaying. It was suddenly blasted apart by this explosion, so shocked that he knelt on the ground. His knees landed heavily on the rubble that was scattered all over the ground. The sharp stones pierced into his knees. Xiaba's face turned pale, struggling to get up. However, before he could move, an overwhelming pressure pressed down on his back, like 1,000 pounds pressing down on him. He couldn't even move. Those disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were still alive listened to the Wolf Saint Law's command. Under this powerful force, one by one they exploded and died. The exploded minced meat and blood gradually stained the ground. The shocking thing was, in this space, it wasn't just the disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were surrounded. There were also the Imperial Palace disciples and other Miao tribesmen. But this violent surge of profound energy bypassed the Imperial Palace disciples and the Miao tribesmen. All of it hit the disciples of the Palace of Darkness. Ah! Save us! Assistant Palace Master, save us! We don't want to die. Overlord, spare us! Spare us! Countless cries for help resounded through the sky. But no matter how they cried for help, how they wailed, it couldn't appease Dmo Xian's anger. Blood stained the ground. The surrounding was destroyed. There was almost no place to stand. Facing this scene, Dmo Xian's expression didn't change at all. Only when he looked down at the unconscious girl in his arms, his cold and stiff face had a trace of gentleness. He raised his hand. His slender fingers gently caressed Yi Qing Luo's face. This was just the interest. Now his little Luo heir was more important. Dmo Xian's brows turned even gentler. He held Yi Qing Luo's little hand in one hand as he placed it by his lips and gave it a light kiss. Gazing at Yi Qing Luo's gaze, it was so gentle that water could be pinched out. Kill everyone from the dark Nether Palace. However, when his lips left the back of Yi Qing Luo's hand, a clear and melodious voice followed. He lowered his voice as if he was worried that he would wake up the person in his arms. His face was also gentle, but the words that came out of his mouth were bone-chilling. Dmo Xian's vision shot towards a certain direction. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept over. Descending from the sky, a snow-white nine-tailed fox with 9 tails dancing wildly in the wind stood steadily in front of Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's eyes lit up. Dmo Xian gently hugged Yi Qing Luo as he slowly stepped onto the 9-tailed fox. It was accompanied by his icy, cold voice. Bring the 2 people from Hell Palace back to the Imperial Palace's dungeon. Use profound ice shackles to lock them up. Standing on Little Nine's back, Dmo Xian sat down, letting the young lady lean into his arms in a comfortable position. Chapter 3020. When Xiaba and Lang Yan heard that, they instantly turned pale with fright. Lang Yan gave out a woo-woo sound as he panted heavily. His face was totally unrecognizable. Only that pair of eyes were opened wide, filled with a vicious haze. Xiaba clenched his teeth tightly as he clenched his fists, trying his best to suppress the anger in his heart. There were legends regarding Dmo Xian. Even for them, this bunch of lunatics who only knew how to cultivate evil arts and only knew how to hunt strange prey, they had all heard of it. Even if they were at their peak, They might not be able to defeat Dmo Xian if they joined hands. Not to mention the fact that they were badly injured after being tortured by Yi Qing Luo. They totally had no way to resist. Overlord. Xiaba's eyes turned red as he refused to give up and tried to negotiate with Dmo Xian. However, Dmo Xian, whose heart was filled with Yi Qing Luo's injuries, totally had no mood to bother about them. Just as Xiaba was about to charge forward unwillingly, a stench filled with a fishy smell blew across his face, directly onto Xiaba's face. Following that, he saw 9 white tails sweeping past his eyes. Xiaba's expression instantly turned as black as charcoal. Earlier, he was defeated by 9-tailed fox's fart. His eyes were filled with viciousness as he clenched his teeth so hard that it made a grinding sound. Little 9 arrogantly flicked his tail as he turned into a white shadow, disappearing into the horizon. Yi Qing Luo was in a daze, and from time to time, she could feel a raging fire burning within her body. Just as he was struggling to expel the burning sensation, he felt a chill run down his spine. But a warm big palm gently held her little hand, and a gentle voice whispering into her ear. She couldn't hear clearly what that voice was saying, but her heart inexplicably felt at peace. Even that burning feeling in her body gradually extinguished in her heart, and in a blur, she felt someone using a warm, soft towel, brushing against her skin bit by bit. Vaguely, she also smelled an extremely familiar and pleasant scent. It made her greedily want to smell it for a while more. She moaned comfortably and once again fell into a deep slumber. The surroundings were quiet and silent. Yi Qing Luo's curly long eyelashes trembled slightly. Suddenly, she felt that there was something in her arms that was moving and moving. Then, she felt a furry thing hugging her neck. "Master, master, you're finally awake." The sweet and crisp voice of a child rang in his ears. Yi Qing Luo was still in a daze. Her long eyelashes blinked once again. What came into view was an extremely cute cat face. Yi Qing Luo's brain was sluggish for a moment before she spat out 2 words. Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi's little head immediately rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's face. "Ow woo woo, master has been unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. Chi-Chi is so worried about master, so worried." Chi-Chi's little pink tongue kept licking Yi Qing Luo's face. 3 days and 3 nights? No wonder she felt weak all over, and even her mind was a little slow. "Are they all right?" Yi Qing Luo had just opened her mouth when she felt her voice was unbearably hoarse and her lips were extremely dry. She frowned and stopped talking. Chi-Chi's little body suddenly jumped from the side of the bed onto the table. Its slender white tail rolled up the quilt on the table and leapt back again. Chapter 30:21. Settled. Yi Qing Luo recalled the warm embrace before she fell into a coma. Also, when she was unconscious, that extremely gentle touch, that gentle whisper, and that aura that made her feel at ease. Her pupils dilated slightly. "Chi-Chi, Xian He, the poison in his body, has it been cured?" "It's cured." Chi-Chi shook her head and nodded vigorously. Old man Gue Wu said that Overlord Master not only cured the poison in his body, but in the process of curing it, he went through a tribulation. He broke through the barrier of advancement, which meant to say Dmo Xian had advanced. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up slightly as her lips couldn't help but curled upwards. Xian's profound grade was already unfathomable and mysterious to the extreme. Breaking through and advancing was an extremely difficult thing. Now he was able to advance. It was also a blessing in disguise. Yi Qing Luo's heart had just calmed down when she thought of something as the smile on her lips faded. Then Yi is fine, everyone is fine. Chi-Chi licked Yi Qing Luo's face. "Master, lie down properly and don't talk anymore." "Chi-Chi will tell Master slowly." Under Chi-Chi's insistent gaze, Yi Qing Luo slowly lay back on the bed. Chi-Chi nestled in her arms and told Yi-Ching Luo about what happened after Yi-Ching Luo had fainted. From Chi-Chi's mouth, Yi-Ching Luo knew that she was now in the imperial palace. This was Dmo Xian's room, and the two people from the Hell Palace were imprisoned in the most secret dungeon in the imperial palace. Over at the Seclusion Palace, those disciples who went to the Miao tribe had all lost their lives. Only one person from the Seclusion Palace managed to escape alive. That person was the Fox Saint technique. The reason why the Fox Saint technique was able to escape was because the Wolf Saint technique had exchanged his life for hers. When Yi-Ching Luo heard her man's boyfriend power to the max, Yi-Ching Luo's eyes couldn't help but start to bubble with pink bubbles. No wonder he was her Xian. He was so handsome that it made one suffocated. As for that Fox Saint technique, escaping, to her, was the biggest torture. The Wolf Saint technique died to save her. In the future, even if she was still alive, she would always remember the Wolf Saint technique and be filled with endless guilt towards it. Living like this was the most painful. So many disciples from the Palace of Darkness have died over at the Palace of Darkness. Is there any movement? Yi-Ching Luo looked at Chi-Chi and asked. Chi-Chi shook its head. Master, you don't know. When you fainted in Overlord Master's arms, Overlord Master was so terrifying. He looked like a demon that had just walked out of hell. If it wasn't for the fact that I was worried about you, Overlord, you would have killed those disciples of Dark Palace with your own hands. Speaking of the scene at that time, Chi-Chi's tiger eyes open wide. Dizun Master is really angry. The Palace of Gloomy Shadows has suffered such a great loss. How would they dare to cause trouble again? Then, what about the Underworld Palace? Yi-Ching Luo asked again. Chi-Chi replied, Dizun Master said that after Master's body recovers, we will go to the Underworld Palace together to avenge you. When Yi-Ching Luo heard that, her brows overflowed with a faint smile. This man, he was truly meticulous. He also knew that she really wanted to take revenge with her own hands. So she specially spared Leng Yan and Xiaba's lives, waiting for her body to completely recover to its original state. The man and the beast were talking. Yi-Ching Luo's ears twitched. She heard light footsteps approaching from outside the door. Chapter 3022. Yi-Ching Luo pursed her lips and shot a glance at Chi-Chi before closing her eyes. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes and closed its eyes, nestling in Yi-Ching Luo's arms. The man and the beast breathed calmly. The footsteps stopped at the door. There was a soft sound of the door opening. Yi-Ching Luo could hear that the room door was opened by a tiny gap. A few pairs of eyes glanced at her. Based on his intuition, Yi-Ching Luo expressed that these gazes weren't friendly at all. She sensed it for a bit. He could roughly confirm that there were 5 women standing outside. She's still asleep. A woman lowered her voice and slowly retreated. The door closed again. After confirming that Yi-Ching Luo had fallen asleep, those few ladies spoke without any reservations. This is the woman Dizun brought back. He doesn't look as stunning as Hall Master Tang described him to be. Even if she isn't a celestial being, Dizun likes her anyway. If Dizun likes her, even if she's ugly, Hall Master Tang will praise her to the skies. I really don't know what the Overlord sees in her. If it wasn't for her, our imperial palace wouldn't be in such a passive position. We even dare to step on the newly established Palace of Darkness. I know, right? The women's tone was filled with resentment and disdain towards Yi-Ching Luo. Only knowing how to rely on our Overlord to flaunt his prowess. Once the Overlord isn't around, he caused himself to almost lose his life. Our imperial palace has kept these pills for so many years. Even His Majesty is reluctant to consume them, but all of them went into her mouth as if they cost nothing. The more I think about it, the more I feel indignant. Who does she think she is? You can't even be compared to Miss Fong. but you still have the cheek to cling to the Overlord. After those women confirmed that Yi Qing Luo had fallen asleep, they vented out all the accumulated grievances in their hearts without any restraints. Initially, when Yi Qing Luo heard those sarcastic remarks, she was still bewildered. How could there be such a terrifying, retarded existence in the imperial palace? When he heard one of the names, she understood everything. Miss Feng, someone with the surname Feng in the imperial palace, and someone who could be called Miss other than Fengling. She couldn't think of anyone else. Windling grew up in the imperial palace. With wind chimes, that idiot. It made sense that there were a few idiots in the imperial palace. As it turned out, these people were Wind Chime's followers. Now he had run over here to watch this woman who was personally carried back by DMO Xian. Did he just want to avenge Wind Chimes? I want to prove it. She was not as good as Fengling. Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes, and a chilly intent filled her eyes. Her weak fingers were just about to lift up. It was easily pressed down by Chi-Chi's tail. In his mind, Chi-Chi's voice resounded. Master, you've just woken up. You can't use your dark force. Chi-Chi will go and teach those baddies who are gossiping outside a lesson. After saying that, Chi-Chi was about to let go of Yi Qing Luo and rush out of the door. But suddenly they heard an angry voice. What are you all doing at Qing Luo's entrance? Which hall are you maids from? How dare you be so rude? The few women who were still talking with confidence and composure were immediately frightened to the point of crying out in alarm. Is the quality of the imperial palace's maidservants so low? You even dare to talk about your own master? That voice was filled with anger. Chapter 30:23. After the female attendant finished her sentence, she sized up the man in front of her. Following that, she covered her mouth as her gaze moved between the direction of the man and the tightly shut door. Young sect master Gu, you're merely a guest of the imperial palace. You have no right to shout and wrangle in front of us. As the female attendant was saying that, her tone turned strange. Speaking of this, young sect master Gu has been running over here for the past few days. Don't tell me that. The woman inside is the woman whom the Overlord had personally brought back? Gu Jingyu's expression sunk as his gentle brows were filled with anger. Don't you dare spout nonsense. There's nothing between this young master and Qing Luo. If you still know that Qing Luo is the woman whom the Overlord had personally brought back, and is your future mistress, then you shouldn't be spouting nonsense behind my back. The Overlord had never acknowledged her identity, so she's only the Overlord's bed-warming maid. That female attendant's tone was filled with disdain. One person took the lead. The other few female attendants didn't have any fear in them. That's right. What future mistress? That's all in your dreams. We're spouting nonsense. You kept coming over to take a peek at that woman. Do you think we don't know? How can this be called as being innocent? The few female attendants totally didn't have any misgivings because of Gu Jingyu's identity. In their hearts, the imperial palace was this world's biggest power. What four great sects, what young sect master. They were all fearless. Gu Jingyu was so infuriated by their shameless words that his brows creased tightly as he flew into a rage. You bunch of young lasses who have no respect for your master! Today, this young sect master shall help your Overlord to teach you how to treat your guests properly. Gu Jingyu's brows sunk as a palm wind landed directly on the female attendant's face. Cough. Just at this moment, suddenly a soft cough was heard from the tightly shut room. Gu Jingyu's palm wind instantly froze in midair. Following that, his figure flashed as he speedily dashed to the front of the room door. He raised his hand and was about to push the door open. But following that, he seemed to have thought of something as his hand awkwardly froze in midair as he slowly retracted it. He clenched his fists and stared at Dollar's door. It was as if there was a whirlpool inside him. After some time, he coughed lightly. Qing Luo, how do you feel? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she looked outside the door, at the reflection of the figure as her lips curled up slightly and her voice was slightly hoarse. "I'm fine, but your body should be fine, right?" In the Miao tribe, Gu Jingyu blocked Xia Ba's attack for her. At that time, he had also suffered very serious injuries. Outside the house, after hearing Yi Qing Luo's concerned words, his lips immediately revealed a gentle smile. "I'm fine." Yi Qing Luo could tell that his voice had softened and could almost guess Gu Jingyu's current expression. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond towards Gu Jingyu's feelings. She could sense it somehow. However, she had no way to determine the sincerity behind these feelings. However, no matter how Gu Jingyu felt about her lover would only be Dmo Xian. There was no doubt about this. Towards Gu Jingyu, she could only say her apologies. "Qing Luo, can I come in?" Not hearing any sound from inside the house, Gu Jingyu immediately opened his mouth to ask worriedly. Yi Qing Luo's eyes drooped as she took a look at herself. She was only wearing a white inner garment. Chapter 30:24. Yi Qing Luo was just about to reject him. Gu Jingyu's hand suddenly placed on the door as he clenched his fists tightly, revealing a belly full of repression. "Qing Luo, follow me. Leave this place with me." His voice was laborious as he squeezed out every single word. "Follow me to Wine Valley Sect. I will let everyone know that you are the future sect mistress. I will not let Wind Valley Sect or anyone in South Water Continent have the chance to bully you." Gu Jingyu seemed to have suppressed it for a long time, and at this moment he finally couldn't hold it in any longer and exploded out. The words that were buried in his heart finally came out. "Gu Jingyu." Yi Qing Luo's expression sunk when she heard Gu Jingyu's words. Gu Jingyu's fist banged heavily on the wall beside the door. "Qing Luo, the Overlord has not acknowledged your identity at all. Even these few female attendants dare to humiliate you. What's the point of you staying in the Imperial Palace?" He clenched his teeth tightly as his eyes were filled with deep anger. If it's me, I will absolutely not bear to let you suffer such grievances." Gu Jingyu. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she propped herself up, trying to get up from the bed. Under such a situation, she could only explain it clearly to Gu Jingyu personally. From the start to the end, her rejection towards Gu Jingyu was already very obvious, but he still insisted on being so persistent. If Gu Jingyu was agitated and rushed into her room, the consequences were unimaginable. But Yi Qing Luo was after all someone who had slept for 3 days and 3 nights, even with the medicinal pills to replenish her energy. Her entire body was still weak and she had no way to get up. Chi used her head to push against her as she whispered, "Master, you can't move around recklessly now. If Master gets injured again, Chi will be spanked by the Overlord Master." Yi Qing Luo's breathing was slightly messed up. Just as she was about to say something, those female attendants who were watching the show outside immediately covered their mouths as they laughed. "I say there's something wrong with the both of you." As expected, you're indeed doing it behind the Overlord's back. Listen to young sect Master Gu's infatuated words. Lady Yi is really good at seduction. Not only has our Lord Di Zun been charmed, but even young sect Master Gu is infatuated with her. Actually, I think that Lady Yi and young Master Gu are a match made in heaven. How could a foxy woman like Lady Yi be worthy of the high and mighty Overlord? The faces of the maids were filled with bitter jealousy. The more he spoke, the more unpleasant his words became. Gu Jingyu's face alternated between green and white as he listened. He clenched his fists, and his eyes were no longer as warm as before. Instead, they were filled with suppressed distress. If His Majesty knew how to cherish him, I wouldn't have said such words. He suddenly raised his head and stared at the tightly shut door in front of him. A trace of determination suddenly flashed in his eyes. "Qing Luo, even if you blame me, I must bring you out of here today. Leave this place that doesn't belong to you." As he spoke, Gu Jingyu suddenly raised his hand and punched the door. The sound of wood breaking rang out. When Yi Qing Luo heard this voice, her heart instantly panicked. She immediately raised her hand, wanting to cover herself with the bedding. But her weak body's speed naturally couldn't match up to Gu Jingyu's speed. A figure dashed towards her at lightning speed. Swoosh! Just as Gu Jingyu's figure was about to appear in the bedroom. Chapter 30:25. Ah! Gu Jingyu let out a blood-curdling scream as he covered his face suddenly. Because of the splinters, there was a vast expanse of white dust in front of him. Gu Jingyu had no time to see clearly everything in front of him. Yi Qing Luo's weak body stiffened slightly. His heart, which had been hanging in suspense, also relaxed. Only Yi Qing Luo had yet to catch her breath. The next moment, a warm and strong arm hugged her tightly in his embrace. Following that, a red robe wrapped around her slender body tightly. Between her breath, the familiar sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up slightly as her eyes overflowed with joy. "Ah Xian!" Her hoarse voice called out the man's name delightedly. She slowly raised her eyes. The man in front of her was dressed in a purple robe with peerless elegance. His face, which was as handsome as a god, was reflected in her eyes at close range, like ink peach blossom eyes, lingering with flowing light. No matter how one looked, it was so cold that it made one sink in and suffocate. Only when Yi Qing Luo's vision fell into Mo Xian's eyes, her heart twitched fiercely. Between the man's brows, there was an unconcealable look of exhaustion. Under both sides of the corner of his eyes, there was a light green color. Apparently, these few days when she was unconscious, Mo Xian hadn't closed his eyes to rest. "Ah Xian!" Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth softly and called out to him. Her tone was filled with heartache. She struggled to raise her hand, trying to caress the man's exhausted brows, but her hand stretched out halfway and drooped down weakly. Mo Xian accurately held her hand and pasted it to his face. "I'm here." The gentle whisper, like a warm current, flowed past. This scene was heartwarming. Some were warm, some were worried. The 5 maids, on seeing Mo Xian, were so scared that their faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. Those who were timid directly knelt on the ground with a thud, shivering, especially when they heard Mo Xian's extremely gentle voice. The maids grew increasingly fearful. Gu Jingyu, whose face was red from being smashed and had a few cuts on his face, forcefully brushed away the cover on his face and glared ahead. Looking at the sweet scene of Mo Xian and Yi Qing Luo looking at each other, his eyes were filled with a deep darkness. His fists were clenched tightly as he tried his best to control himself. His heart was filled with love towards Yi Qing Luo as he gritted his teeth and bellowed furiously. "Overlord, even if you're the Overlord, you can't force Qing Luo to be with you. Since you're not willing to give Qing Luo the status she deserves, then don't stop Qing Luo from finding her own happiness." His hysteria made Mo Xian cast a sidelong glance. Mo Xian's icy, cold peach blossom eyes indifferently glanced at Gu Jingyu. His rosy lips curled up into an extremely shallow and cold arc. "I know exactly what happened just now." His voice was flat, wrapped in a chill that made people shiver. Her words caused the 5 maidservants to collapse to the ground, their bodies weak and limp. Crystal clear, which meant the Overlord had heard all their ridicule towards Yi Qing Luo. "Since you're clear, then you should know that Qing Luo will not be happy in the imperial palace." Gu Jingyu clenched his fists tightly. In order to fight for the love of his heart, he plucked up his courage and met Mo Xian's gaze. "Not happy,"